Never give in. Never, never, never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
This country can't be knocked out with one punch. We get right back up again, and when we do, the world's going to hear the roar of our engines.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
You do your work, and we will do our bit.
Republic. I like this sentiment. It means people can live free, talk free, go or come, buy or sell, be drunk or sober, however they choose.
Are you ready to be who you are?
No poetry, just a straight answer.
The government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace.
We are men of the hood, Matty, now you're exposed.
But there's no both sides anymore. They're just trying to wreck our goddamn country. It's time for you younger guys to take over.
You meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
If you guys don't start thinking as men, we're gonna have a lousy country.
For the crimes of incitement to cause unrest, I declare to be an outlaw.
All right, everybody, it's the Outlaw Radio Network. It is the 24th of March. Is this the Ides of March? Is that what the Ides of March? Isn't the Ides of March the 24th?
Ides of March is the 15th.
Oh, is it the 15th? Oh, whatever. Screw it. It's the Ides plus 9. Yeah, it's the Ides plus 9. It's the 24th of March, 2024. Thanks for checking out the show. Going to be a fun show tonight. Going to be a really fun show tonight because we are bringing back
dun, dun, dun.
Probably my favorite guest, except for the guy that played Toruk on Star Trek DS9, who roasted Paul for a whole hour. But outside of that guy, former state representative, soon to be state representative Jesse Young joins us in studio. Hello, Jess. What's up, buddy?
Man.
It's good to
be back
see
with
you.
you guys. Yeah,
it's good to see you. K-Dog, Black Tom in studio, along with Lori, the CEO, Bob Ross behind the boards, and I believe, is he there? Is Paul here yet? Is he? Let's bring Paul on. As Paul joins us from the palatial St. Paul Estates Taxidermy Farm
Paul? I had to cut my nuts off of pigs today, man. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You're speaking my love language.
Did he just say he's a Democrat?
Yeah. Hey, Jesse. Is that Jesse? Hey, Jesse, you know, I possess the physical ability to come through this screen and strangle the ever-loving life out of you. So those are swear words, my friend. Swear words. It's nice to see you, too.
Balls.
On the pigs, Jesse. On the pigs.
That was the question I was going to ask you, Paul. Since you cut the balls off the pigs, have the Democrats tried to register them to vote yet?
I did get a call from the Do You Support Dems in Control of Washington for another 40 years political action committee today. And surprisingly, their numbers are that they're 68 points in the lead. So, that's something we need to talk about. I know Tom is thoroughly excited about that. Maybe Jesse will have something to add to it that'll brighten our day. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how much more I can continue puking over hearing the name Bob Ferguson.
Well, we're gonna get into all that for sure, Tom.
All right.
I have an anti-Inslee Ferguson rant for later.
We'll get to all that later.
Yeah.
We have at least 2 hours with Jesse. If Jesse has fun, maybe he stays for a third hour. But we have at least 2 hours with Jesse. So I think what we're gonna do. Hey, nice ass, Paul. I think what we're gonna do is
kiss it. I was checking for Lori's beads.
Well,
whoa. What's going on?
There's a lot of things you missed while you've been gone. Lori's opened her own business.
That's right.
They're hanging from the microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, Voice Beats.
One, don't forget Foot Picks by Kiki.
Foot Picks by Kiki is a new sponsor of the show. And I don't want to forget, listen, I hate to forget, all of our friends up on the north end at Paul's Bowl for All.
Paul's Bowl for All,
Thank
baby.
you for your support and love and all the traffic to our website and our Facebook page. You guys are phenomenal. And if you want to call us, you can call us on the Paul's Bowl for All hotline at 360-874-1400. Jesse, love to talk to you. I think what we should do to open the show, we need to talk about your announcement for your candidacy, which I believe was made official just over a week ago.
Yes.
I'm
You
sad.
better hope it was. Otherwise you just blew it.
Yeah, I'm sad it wasn't done on this show.
Kevin, you kind of ruined it.
Makes me unhappy.
Right,
It should have been on this show, but whatever. You and I will get out in the parking lot after the show. So I want to talk about that, and then I want to get to some state issues and stuff, and we'll just spend the whole first hour on that. And then the second hour, we'll just see where we go. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Does that work? Tell your dog to
It sounds like
up,
you got
Paul.
some new audience. They don't know who I am, maybe.
They don't.
That's right. Let's
start with that. For the listeners who do not know who the Jesse Young is, could you just give a synopsis? Who is Jesse? Where did Jesse come from? What did Jesse do? And why is Jesse back?
Okay, sure.
But don't ask him about Jesse's girl.
Her name is Jenny.
No, it's way too personal.
I've got her number.
It's 8675309.
If you were smart, that would be the number for your campaign headquarters.
That would be amazing.
I'm sorry. I do have a brief interjection to make here. We are all officially old.
Yeah. Isn't 867 a Port Orchard prefix?
No, 876 is though.
I thought 867.
Maybe I should have gone for that though. Still close enough. You know what I mean?
Okay. Go ahead,
now,
Jess.
now, for all you old people, you're not tied to your prefixes anymore. Welcome to the internet age.
Well, I guess that's right.
Boomers.
Some of us are.
867 is a Thurston County prefix, so it could work. Okay, go ahead, Jess.
Interesting. Well, okay. So, hey, I grew up in Tacoma.
Come on.
Oh, wow, he's got.
God
interruption.
bless it,
Fumble.
Tom.
That was a fumble, Tom.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jess.
Well, it's nice to be back. So I served in the legislature for about 10 years. Prior to being in the legislature, I worked in the IT industry for a long time. I still do take some contracts, but I grew up in my corporate world in Silicon Valley. Prior to that, graduated from the University of Notre Dame and was fortunate, and I feel like there's a lot of providence in my life because I grew up and was homeless during high school. In Tacoma. So I know what it's like to kind of have to bootstrap yourself up. And I was 100% focused on lifting my family up out of poverty. I wanted to do the same thing for my mom and extended family. And so I'm a dad, been married over 20 years, have 6 kids. And at some point in the middle of that, I just looked and said, what am I going to do to make sure that my kids have a future and have a chance at the opportunity for the American dream the way that I did? Because, I was able to, just through hard work, studying and kind of following that tried and true method that we were all taught in school, I was able to achieve that. And I wanted to make sure my kids had that opportunity. And I just looked around and I saw all my friends that, when I went to Notre Dame, they stayed in Tacoma. And when I came back, they were still living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of them were still struggling to make ends meet, no opportunity for home ownership. They're going to be stuck in their apartments and potentially on welfare. And I just said, man, I got to do something. What can I do to not only take care of my kids, but also carve out a future for them and for all the people that I grew up with? So I ended up throwing my hat in a political arena, and the voters of the 26th district saw fit to put me in the office in 2014. And I won every election I ran for my seat. And then 2 years ago, I decided to try to take a step up and came close. But didn't quite get past the finish line. And so I've had 2 years off, and I am thankful as all get out that I had that time off. I got a chance to launch another one of my girls into college. I'm very proud of my daughter, Angela, who got a full ride Navy scholarship to Regent University in Virginia.
Nice.
And then
it's funny. I just applied for information from Regent. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I got 2 boys that are in high school. I've got another boy that's in middle school, and then I've got a 4-year-old at home still. And, when you spend as much time in the legislature and still working in the private sector the way that I did, I didn't realize how much I was starting to burn out a little bit. And so having those 2 years to reinvest in the kids, reinvest in my wife, be there for them. It gave me a chance to not only kind of recollect myself, catch my breath, if you will, but it gave me a chance to really refocus on some of those things that were really important to me when I came in. Because when you're in the middle of the game, you don't necessarily know. It's hard to step back and kind of reevaluate strategy and what's important to you. I had a chance to do that, and lo and behold, my seat opened back up, the seat I had been in for the past decade. And after a lot of prayer and time with the family, I feel called to go ahead and step back into that. Had a lot of people asking me to do that, and service is, I think, kind of in my blood now, and so I'm running again for my old seat.
That's good. I'll speak honestly. When I found out that Spencer was not going to seek re-election, the first question I asked was, Jesse, and I'm not going to shower you with praise for the next 2 hours, but I will tell you, you and I don't agree on everything politically. We certainly have differences of opinion on some political stuff, but there is not and I've met a lot of state representatives and a lot of elected people and a lot of people active in the parties. And to me, you and Dan Griffey are like the epitome of what I think elected representatives should be.
Don't forget Travis.
Not a knock on Travis.
No.
I haven't known Travis as long, so this is not a knock on Travis.
Sure.
But I've known Dan for years, and I've known Jesse for years. And when I look at people that are serving their communities and the way in which they do it, I think you guys are, and you hold a really special place in my heart, honestly, Jess. I love telling this story about you. I'll do it to your face because I did it last week when we had our other guest in last week. We did a thing at my old church where we did outreach to the homeless. We fed them. We had a pantry where they could pick up stuff. We tried to minister to them a little bit, and I invited you to come down, and you came down, and the first thing that impressed me was it was just Jesse. No photo op, no story, nothing about it on your social media. You weren't doing it to score brownie points. You were just there to serve. And I turned around at one point and turned back around, and you just grabbed a broom and you were sweeping. Nobody asked you to do it. You were just there to serve. And the next month, I don't even think I brought it up to you again. You knew about it. The next month, you showed up with 2 of your sons because you wanted them to serve and you wanted to impart that on them. And I think that is the measure of a man, right? And whether we agree on political stuff across the board, the one thing I know about Jesse Young is he's a man of integrity, and he serves, and he believes in serving, and he believes in being out there. And I love you like a brother for it. And I'm one of the greatest things that's come out of this show is getting to know you, for me.
Well, thank you for saying that. I don't know. There's two sides of the coin that I guess I see when you bring up an example like that. And I don't want to camp on the negative side, so I'll touch it first. And that is, I loathe the announce and bounce politicians. That phrase was introduced to me early when I entered into the legislature. And that was, hey, all you got to do when you got all these people pulling at your arm to try to get some of your time, just figure out when they're going to announce you and just show up then, announce yourself, or let them announce you and then bounce out. But there's never this opportunity to connect with the folks. There's never this consideration for actually investing in the people that you ideally are being elected to serve, because it is public service. So I just, that's not in me. I don't like that. I don't like that aspect of the job. There are a lot of pulls on your time, but I think that the key to being a successful politician is to actually care about the people you're serving. From the standpoint of the positive side, I believe that we're all going to have to be held accountable to our Maker someday. I believe I'm going to stand before Christ, and those little things that people do that other people don't see, the Lord sees. And if I can instill that on my kids, if I can demonstrate that, hopefully more people than just you have seen that, because I believe that gives a lot of hope to people when they see somebody speak in volumes with their actions, even though if they don't get credit for it.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I just have that's always been kind of ingrained into me as a kid, and I want my kids to emulate it, so that they're not just doing it for whatever reward they're going to get because they got announced for it. Because what you do in secret, your Father sees in secret.
Yeah.
And so that's always been important to me. So I appreciate you noting that, and I'm glad that helped us to develop a relationship. I think the cool part about our relationship is that you actually know where we differ. And I think that's because our relationship's built on some modicum of honesty.
Yep.
I've always tried to be transparent. I've never really, I can't remember a time where I've ever said, hey, don't ask me this or put conditions on
Mhm.
a
Yeah,
on
you
an
never have.
interview. And I mean, to be honest, I don't know why politicians I don't know why they get scared. I understand the math for an incumbent. You don't really want to take the risk of getting asked a question that maybe gives your opponent a chance to attack you. But I found by and large, if you're willing to just be honest your entire time, a lot of those hard questions aren't hard. They're opportunities to bridge a gap with someone that may not agree with you. And so to the degree that that's been the definition of our relationship,
Mhm.
I think it's why we are where we are today. And I'm glad for it. It's,
Yeah.
I actually was thinking as I was driving here tonight,
We're good on. Okay, we're
Oh,
back
hey,
now.
now I hear
There
you.
we go.
Hey.
I had to reset
Okay.
something. We're perfect. All right. Sorry, Jesse. Go ahead. See,
what-
state of the art organization, just like you left us. Just,
Woo!
when you left last time and then you came back, it's all the same thing.
maybe some of those groups that you're getting so overwhelmed. that
Oh
took
yeah,
you down,
Paul's
man.
Bowl for All is blowing up our phone lines right now. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Well, I think when we bumped off, I was just saying I was looking forward to it. There's no anxiety about coming here.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm coming to a group of guys that I really dig, and we're going to have some fun conversations, and maybe that will be valuable to the people that are listening, whether they like me or not.
Yeah, I got a snarky message about how I'm not unbiased, and my response to this: I'm not supposed to be biased. I'm not a journalist. I'm a commentator, and if I was not honest, I'd be lying to you. So suck it.
Well, that's not true though. You were extremely unbiased when
In
you
the
first
beginning,
met
yeah.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
You put me through my paces.
Oh,
So
I
did
didn't
Paul.
want to like you in the beginning. If you remember that,
I do remember.
I did not want to be a fan of Jesse in the beginning. Yeah.
I remember some parking lot conversations that we had, and you guys were kind of kicking the tires and trying to feel out, because in one or two interviews, you don't really know whether or not I'm just feeding you a line and
Yeah.
whether I made it through the interview without getting exposed, or was I really telling you the real deal. But over the course of that decade, we had enough time together that
Mhm.
the things I was saying, I think, kind of added up. At least I wasn't leaving some gap out there. Well, he
Yeah.
said this, but then I saw that. So I think that it's fair to say that you were unbiased. We're friends now.
Yeah, we're friends now. So let me ask you this question. So 2 years out, 2 years off, no legislative responsibilities, time with the family. But did you learn anything that is going to serve you better in Olympia, or serve you better in working with Democrats, or serve you better working with other Republicans? Or is there anything that you learned in this 2 years you think are going to make you more effective if and when you get back into your seat?
Yeah, I did. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 answers that could probably go long. So just kind of cut me off if I'm going. I would say, first off, I want to think that if I think back, that if we ever talked about it, I seem to recall that maybe we did many moons ago. At some point in time, we probably covered the topic of what would ever happen if I did leave. I have always maintained I've seen other legislators over my time leave, and leave ungracefully. And I determined by seeing a myriad of different exits that I would resolve to, if I was unelected or if I was leaving, I'm going to cut it off. I mean, I've just seen people keep trying to poke their head down, and you have to go into this knowing that most people are only on board with you because of your title. I knew, for example, I've seen other legislators bemoan the fact that lobbyists won't call them back after they're gone, and I'm like, I never expected to get a call back. I expected no more than 5, and I only got 2, and I wasn't disappointed by it. Because lobbyists are there to work on legislation. If you don't have the title, then you can't affect that legislation per se. So I wasn't gonna linger around. So I left. But when I cut it off, I truly cut it off. I didn't get involved in any of the local party politics. My wife was still involved, and so I'd kind of hear stuff on the back end. And I think a lot of people expected me to still be more involved. But I really wanted a clean cut, and I wanted to make sure that if I was getting anything right, it was going to be getting it right with my wife and my kids. And so had a year off, and man, that was really refreshing. That was the first thing. The second thing, because it was refreshing, not only did I get refreshed, I got a chance to kind of have a second chance at a first impression and to get a new perspective. the first thing I learned was when I came in, I know for a fact that I shared this with you. I shared this with a number of people my first couple sessions in. My assessment then was the number one impediment to getting anything done was offense. When politicians take offense at somebody else, they've been slighted. Someone didn't support a bill. Someone didn't give them credit, or some other form of, they didn't nod at them when they walked past them in the hall. And so I really put up a big discussion point and tried to gird myself, if you will, towards not taking offense. But in reflection, this last year and a half, I could tell that offense had started to build up. It's almost impossible not to get offended when you're down there. Mm-hmm. There are so many things that people are passionately fighting for that over the course of time, and that's just in the legislative aspect. You got the politics side of it too. And so I was able to let a lot of that stuff, I think I let it all go. I don't have any animosity towards people. And so if I've learned anything that I'll apply,
keep going.
It's that I'm going to safeguard. I've got, and I think I've got some good parameters I'm going to put in place as I'm serving these safeguards to keep me from getting offended. I don't want to assume the motives, for example, of my Democrat colleagues as easily. Mm-hmm. And towards the end, I was really, I found, I can say in hindsight that I found myself assuming some motives. That's the number one key. You can't assume somebody's motive. The only one that can judge somebody's heart is God himself or Christ. And so I don't want to do that. So if they're telling, even if I think they're lying, or if I think they've got an agenda, if they're telling me this, I'm going to take them at their word until I have fact that they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is I'm going to put a lot more restrictions on my time. Partly because I don't want to take offense, but partly because you don't know when you're going in all of the things that are going to pull at your time. Mm-hmm. And it can drive you crazy. And I put in a lot of hours. And if I want to keep myself at full capacity for my constituents, I'm better. I've got a better game plan at how to protect my time so that the effort I'm putting in is 100% always on top for the district.
Perfect. And just in 30 seconds, when you announced, did you receive the response you expected? Like, did you get more support than you thought? Was there like what?
Yeah,
what
I had a first. It was more than I thought. I actually got interrupted for the first time with people cheering my name, and as they were cheering my name, I've never been interrupted that way. I had a whole speech prepared to announce, and it basically threw it out the window as they started going, Jesse, and I was like, man, if I'm giving hope to people like that, then yeah, this is probably the right choice.
Perfect. All right. We come back. I'm going to ask Jesse a tough question. So we'll do that after the break. It's Outlaw Radio. Stick around on Mega Talk. And Paul's back. Hi, Paul. Back after this. All right. We are on Facebook only now. So folks, feel free to swear if you need to.
Dang it.
Yeah. Paul, we haven't done an interview with somebody in studio before when you have been remote. So
that's right. Yeah.
I need to figure out a way to know when to let you in so that you can ask your questions too. And we're going to have to work on that because we haven't ever done that before.
I'll do jumping jacks, Hey, listen, though, the truth is at least with Jesse, we've interviewed him. We've talked to him enough. We're comfortable enough with him. So I think it's going to go smoothly well. No worries at all. No worries at all.
Your dogs are so loud, Paul.
That's because they're cheering for Jesse, man.
That's right. They heard that Jesse was running. Comments in chat real quick.
Nah, it's that my son just got home, and so the dogs are parking the cars outside.
Is that Hunter or Truin?
Truin. So I'm using the mute button.
Okay, that sounds good. Sean said in chat, Jesse's girl ended up being Stacy's mom. Okay.
Stacy's mom has got it going on. I think I've heard that song.
Rick said, presume positive intent. That's how we all should operate. Thank you, Rick. Good to see you back in chat. We love Rick. What else do we have here? Kevin Nelson, I hear Tom and Lawyer going into business together, booze and beads. Had to say it. Oh, yeah, well, the more booze you had, the more beads you buy.
I made that very comment.
There you go.
Yeah, Jesse, don't ask Kevin to go into too much detail about the beads.
No, we're
not want to know.
No, we're not.
You may not want to know.
We'll talk about that after.
Whoa.
We'll talk about it after it leaves. It's an adult show. All right, we're almost back from Facebook.
Is this something I shouldn't put the Jesse Young stickers on or get it?
I would not endorse.
I don't know. I mean, you might find a small niche.
Outlaw Radio. We're back after this.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
Hey, by the way, folks, do not forget April
7th.
Oh, no, it can't be April 7th. We're not doing a show that night.
Why aren't we?
That's WrestleMania night, Tom.
Whoa.
Ah!
Okay.
Can you move her back to the 14th? Maybe message about the 14th.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I'll fix it.
Brandy Cruz is going to be on with us in April. So
Brandy's great.
Yeah, we've had her on a couple times. She's wonderful with her time. She's great. So we'll have Brandy on.
Did I understand that? Hold on, time out. Did I understand that correctly? Tom booked her on WrestleMania night?
Yeah, he did.
I didn't know when WrestleMania
No, it's
was.
okay. I'll do the show with you. Anything's more important than WrestleMania. I mean, all that is a bunch of half-naked dudes oiled up anyway. Brandy Cruz is much more interesting.
Or as Paul calls it, time in the tank. All right. So,
Wow.
me-
Wow.
Wow.
You're a glorified taxi driver, dude, and you're giving me grief. Okay.
Jesse, let me ask you. I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
All right.
One of the things that I hear from people who are not Jesse Young supporters, Jesse's combative, Jesse's abrasive, Jesse is politically incorrect, Jesse sounds mean when he talks to people, and that isn't the Jesse that I've seen or dealt with. How do you respond when that's brought up to you?
And before you say anything, I defended you last week when we talked about this.
But I want to give you a chance to respond to it because it's some of the narrative that comes out for the people that are not Jesse Young fans.
Okay. Well, the most honest answer, I'll give an answer, but let me state the paradigm the right way. I think has that been your experience? You've seen me personally. You've seen me at WrestleMania events. You've seen me in stressed events and carefree events like the racetrack, where I became the inaugural champion. I just want
of the Outlaw
Challenge. So you saw me in a chance when I got to gloat. You saw me in a chance where we just got to be carefree. You've seen me in lots of arenas. Is that your experience?
It's never been my experience.
Been your experience, Paul?
Yeah, a few times, but but honestly, I'm Polish, so who cares? No, in all seriousness, man, I've never understood where those criticisms came from. I've never seen anything remotely close to it, which makes me very honored and proud to be able to call you my friend. I can't. I was just talking to my neighbor about you today, man. He's like, I got to meet this guy. He just moved in, by the way. So, to me, that's what it's about. This is a relatively small community. I mean, I'm all the way out here on Keep Peninsula, but I still have a Gig Harbor address, man. Yeah. So it is a small community, and it's important for people to get to see the real you. That's what's so important about this show.
Well, let's understand politics then. The nature of politics is to find a narrative and try to drive it home that will put a wedge between a certain candidate and their and the constituents that are potentially going to vote for them. So let's see. You can't attack me and say that I'm some silver spoon Republican. You can't attack me and say I'm some establishment Republican or that I support the corporatists. You can't attack me and you can't attack me. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I never have. I don't smoke. I've given up and sacrificed a lot of money, so you can't say I'm in it for the money now. How are you going to create a narrative around a guy that's been faithful to his wife for 20 plus years, raises his kids? The only thing that they've got to attack me on is to somehow come back and say that, okay, I guess I'm mean. But that hasn't been your experience, and I didn't pay you to say that. That's been your experience.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know what the problem is, though. When you are clear and direct in your communication, people take that as abrasive and aggressive. Because I have the same communication style. I mean, I sort out all the garbage, and it's like, okay, here's what we need to talk about. And
okay, Tom.
Somehow that's abrasive.
Well, let me tell you who doesn't think that I'm the nicest person. Some lobbyist that comes down there and then attempts to lie to get me to vote against my district. They won't find me friendly because I'll tell them that's wrong and you know it. Do you think when I came in, do you remember this? The number one issue that was staring down, I had to stare down was the fact that I had been appointed the year before the tolls on the Narrows Bridge were about to skyrocket. and I had to solve the impossible financial problem, the biggest financial blunder in state history, and I had to solve it, or I was facing a very real scenario that the voters were going to say, that's the new guy, and he just screwed it up, and my tolls just went up, and they'd be over $10 right now if I hadn't fixed it. You think that was an easy fix? No, I had to go down and I had to negotiate. Now think about this: when there were Democrats in these two seats prior to Caldeer and I had taken them over, the Democrats that were in could not convince their Democrat majority that's majority based in Seattle. And so when you have to negotiate with them for budget allocations, especially on transportation dollars, which are hard to come by, they couldn't get their own Democrat party in Seattle to give money to this district out here because there are more Seattle members than there are Gig Harbor or Kitsap County members. And therefore, they couldn't get their own caucus to give them money to help mitigate the toll problem. So what did I do? I went in there and I'm very good at the budgets. That's been probably the biggest thing I've been lauded for, even by all the liberal press and the papers, has been this guy knows how to negotiate a budget. So do you think that was an easy negotiation as a Republican to get Democrats to give us more money? No, but I think that's what alternatively a lot of voters, especially independents, liked. This guy said he was going to go get that job done, and he went and got it done. I negotiate, and I'm proud to negotiate very hard for my district. And since I came in, and to be honest, let me tell you, that's another valid piece of praise that I always respected about Representative Caldeer. She negotiates extremely tough too. And some people might want to say that maybe that makes her mean too. It doesn't. It makes her a good negotiator, and I think it makes me a good negotiator. And for come hell or high water, the papers had to praise the results. They didn't want to praise the politician. They didn't want to praise my potential politics because they don't agree with it, but they had to praise the results. And so I go down there and I call it like I see it. And some people will always come up and say, if you have the gall to tell me the truth, you're being offensive because you didn't give me the politically correct answer. I'm going to go down there, and I believe the better part of politics is to be a truth teller. And if people believe that you'll keep your word, you can be very effective as a politician, just that some people won't. The people that you're more effective than have every reason to come out and try to say that you're not a nice guy. But think about all of the things that they could say about me that have never been said and never broached, because I believe I'm a man of integrity. I keep my word, and I work extremely hard, and I don't apologize for it.
Yeah. So let's stay on the Narrows Bridge just for a sec, because that was really one of the benchmarks of your first tour through there, being able to negotiate the freeze on the payments. Obviously, that changed after you left, or maybe before you left. But Emily Randall in the Senate were able to put through a bill that made some modifications to that. It allowed them to make an increased payment to it. And then last week, or maybe the week before, they came out with a bill that said now the bridge isn't going to be paid off as early as they thought, and they've had to extend the payments out to 2033. Is this, and I honestly don't know the answer to this, so you might want to slap me if I'm wrong, but is this a continuation of what the Senate did last year, where they modified the payments, and now that's what's spreading this out? Is this kind of the undoing of what Jesse Young had done originally?
It's doing it in part. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, because it probably is. Probably from a financial standpoint, either keeping the tolls down and solving that financial impossibility, because literally that's what the papers called it. That's what every politician, that's what Congressman Kilmer called it. That's what former Representative Sequist called it. Former Senator Angel, everybody basically punted on it, said it can't be fixed. The Transportation Commission said you can't fix it. Well, send a private sector guy that's worked in the financial arena a long time in corporate America. Oh, he found a solution. We found that. The first answer to your question is yes. If Emily's bill had not gone through, the tolls would not be extended further right now. What we did was we put a hard cap on the tolls, and we found a way to refinance them with zero interest. It was a huge financial win for us. The benefit of the zero interest refinancing that we did on the bridge saved us over $250 million minimum.
Wow.
Just on that's taxpayers.
Wow.
So it's either from a financial standpoint, thank you. From a financial standpoint, it was either that or the fact that you don't have to pay Sound Transit car tab renewal fees every year, which is saving everybody for every car that they have out on this side of the bridge or on this side of the Puget Sound. That was the other big win I had on the finance side for the transportation budget, which was you don't have to pay $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a year in car tab renewals, like they do on the other side.
If you have an electric car, you do.
Well, yeah, if you have an electric car.
That's you.
That's the
that was significant when I moved over from King County to here.
Oh, yeah.
My car tabs went way down. I was like, "Are you kidding? This is exciting."
If you want more of that, vote Young.
Yes, exactly.
So those were the two bigs. Probably the tolls, though, were financially a bigger deal. So what? Now, I'll give them credit. They knew that the Senate Democrats knew that I was coming for Emily, and they wanted to set the stage for a more favorable win for her. So what did they do? They passed a bill that allowed them in a temporary form to remove the hard cap on tolls in exchange for dropping them 25 cents. And so what they did was in the election year, they passed a bill that Emily wrote that allowed them to drop the tolls 25 cents. But what it did was it removed the hard cap so that at some point they can come back and start raising them again. And then it also changed the financing structure of it such that they could extend the payments out longer. And the goal of our bill was to stop the tolls from going up and get them off as early as possible. And it was working. The financing structure was working. Smart politics, because what they did was they took that issue off the table so that, if I started talking about it more, Emily could come back and say, well, Jesse, you stopped the tolls from going up. I actually lowered them. That's the dynamic they were trying to create, knowing that it would only bait me politically into trying to describe, well, yeah, but if you go more into the details, you're going to allow them to raise up. You're going to allow them to stand up. But in politics, the person explaining is the person losing. And in a 30-second soundbite, they set the stage for her to carve out a win on that. So it changed the dynamics. What they did was they took a win away from me in the public eye. Smart play politically, but it hurt the district financially.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
How do you get around that? We talked about, was it Robert Parker we talked to about this, where there was a mental health bill that was being proposed. It was being proposed by a Republican. Oh no, it was Travis. It was Travis. And Travis was involved in it. Travis Couture out of the
35th.
35th. Thank you. I wanted to say 23rd. I'm so dumb. But because he was a Republican, the leadership, which were the Democrats, didn't want to put it through, but it had bipartisan support. And had it been presented out by a Democrat lawmaker instead of a Republican lawmaker, it probably would have moved forward in the process because it would have been winning for the Dems. As a Republican legislator, how do you combat that when especially in a district like the 26th, which is not a Republican, it's not always been a Republican district. There can be some play. The races are closer than other races, and the Democrats are going to look at it. Well, if we can shift this, if we can not let, let's say, Jesse Young have a victory, maybe it helps our party when we try to challenge that seat later. How do you fight that as a legislator to get things done and get things accomplished, even when the opposing party leadership is trying to hedge their bets for the next election?
Well, I know that issue well. I mean, that was the same thing I was faced with. When I was appointed in 2014, I had some bills that I tried to get in, and I had some simple House resolutions. So House resolutions are usually more ceremonial. They don't have the effect of law, and they don't have to go through. They don't have to be signed by the governor. They don't have to be sent to the other body, or in this case, the Senate. And so I had I knew that coming in, because I was appointed midway through the session, so I knew that I wasn't going to have enough time to get a bill through. I mean, just there's a calendar that we have to accommodate while we're down there, and the calendar just wasn't going to add up because I was appointed late. So my best shot at trying to get something through was a House resolution. It was a resolution to honor the United States flag. And keep in mind, back in 2014, this is before Colin Kaepernick started kneeling down, and that became an issue, or somehow became controversial, to stand for the United States flag. And so I ran this House resolution, and everybody thought, oh, this will be a no-brainer. I mean, they'll put it up on the calendar at some point. We'll vote it off the floor, and everybody will go kind of kumbaya on it. And it was important to me because I wanted to at least do something in my first term, even because I wasn't going to be able to get a bill passed because it was too late by the time I got there. So I found out 3 days later, after I had submitted the resolution, I went to our minority leader and said, hey, when's that going to be on the calendar? He goes, sorry, Jesse, I took it over to the speaker. He saw your name on it and said, Young is our number one target. He gets nothing. Okay, so no, that was my introduction to it. And I was like, all right, okay, welcome to politics. Here's what I can tell you. Travis is smart. I think the more you get to know Travis, the more you're going to like him. And he's a very smart individual. And from that standpoint, Travis is only going to grow stronger. And he's got the smarts to grow stronger, because when you're in the minority like this and they play those types of games, you have to up your game in order to try to push something through. That's what I did. And I just, so sometimes you have to find, where's that sweet spot where I can start trying to be bipartisan and work on issues that I can agree with the other party on? And where can I try to build relationships and maybe start to say, hey, if I can help you get that, can you start to work on this for me? And as a result of that, after 10 years, I got very effective at getting things through in the minority because I had built some cachet with Democrats, with other members, and bicameral through the Senate as well. And Travis will do well in that arena. And now that's the long-term play. The short-term play might be that in that particular instance, Travis might have to find a Democrat that will, in the next session, choose to run that themselves. If it's a bipartisan bill and the Democrats really like it, give it to a Democrat, go on at number 2. That's how I got the bridge fixed through. There was never going to be an instance where Jesse Young was the prime sponsor on a bill, even though I virtually wrote 100% of it, even though I came up with all the financial ideas on how to do it. At the end of the day, in 2018, I walked over to a Democrat, Representative Jake Fye, who's the chair of the Transportation Commission, who I had been working with up until that point in negotiating budgets. Said, Jake, look, this is my baby. It's a good bill. He's like, yeah, I know it is. Would you consider running it? And I'll go number 2. That way, they'll say that it was a Democrat bill. Fortunately for me, Jake was a very honorable man, and he probably pissed some Democrats off because he made sure that when he was given interviews that he gave a lot of credit to me for coming up with a lot of stuff. And so I ended up getting credit in the papers for doing it. So that's kind of the long-term answer. You got to build some relationships. You got to work bipartisanly. And if you can build up a cachet of respect and trust with other people, then you can start to move it. And it goes back to what Ronald Reagan said. You can get a lot of stuff done in politics if you don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you got to do.
And you have a history. You had a history through your first tour in the legislature of working across the aisle. I mean, I know that you had. I think you partnered with Tara Simmons on something and got some stuff passed. You
voting rights, extending voting rights to people.
Yeah,
I'm proud to support that. Look, I had a lot. I'll tell you, I ran a very effective office. I ran a very independent office because one of the biggest mistakes that people make, and they want when you come in as a new representative, a freshman, the established leadership want you to make this mistake. It only empowers their ability to control the legislative process if they get you to make this mistake. And that mistake is coming in and assuming you're working for somebody down in Olympia. Think about the normal experience that most people have when they enter the legislature. They've at some point in time in their career worked a job. And when you work a job and you get hired on to a new job, what do? You show up on the first day and you go to your boss and say, all right, where do I sit? And what do you want me to work on? And they tell you, and you start your job of employment with them. They want you to accept that same mentality when you go down to Olympia. But here's the problem. You don't have a boss when you're down there. Your only boss are your constituents. And so, but leadership wants you to come in and they want you to go, okay, boss, where do I sit? And what do you want me to do? And if you buy into that narrative, you are forever subjecting your constituents to a second-tier status to the power structure that is. And the only way that will ever shift is if you compromise enough to make it into the established leadership position. I chose not to do that. And that might be another reason why some people felt like their feathers were getting ruffled. Because when leadership would come and say, Jesse, we want you to vote this way, I'd say, no, that's not how my constituency wants. I'm going to support and represent my district. Okay, well, Jesse, we want you to go do this. No, my priorities are fixing that bridge. I'm telling you, I was singularly focused for the first 3 years down there of fixing it, because that was the number one financial issue for every working class constituent in my district. If I hadn't fixed that, those tolls would have gone up to over $10 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And can you imagine the financial burden that would have put on the
yeah.
working class people in this district? It's untenable. So I was singularly focused on spending time, late nights, early mornings in the bowels of the basements of the Capitol, negotiating budgets with the executive branch agencies and then the other political players that were involved in transportation. And I didn't apologize for it. And again, I was trying to serve my constituents. So I politely declined certain authoritative requests made on me, because at the end of the day, they're not my boss. You guys are.
Mm-hmm.
I think people found that refreshing. Well, so I jumped into that description because I told you I run an independent office, and that's what I mean by it. When I ran an independent office, I wasn't going down there to vote the way some member from some other district thinks that I should vote. I'm going to vote for the issues that matter here.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course of 10 years, I can count on more than the 10 digits I have on these fingers how many Democrats, let alone Republicans, how many Democrats would privately call me and ask me for advice on how they ran their offices. Because at some point in time, these legislators the smart ones start to figure out, I am sick and tired of being told what to do. I didn't get elected to do that. I want to represent my district.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but leadership has a strong investment in making sure that they keep you under their thumb so that you do what they tell you to do so that they can maintain power. That's the wrong way for the political system to work. And so I very independently run that office. And the members that do oftentimes get attacked on both sides of the aisle, because you're now a challenge, a threat potentially to the establishment class. And I unequivocally will always be that challenge to the establishment.
Hold on, your mic's not on.
I can't talk.
No, you're on now. Okay. Just don't touch
Aren't
it.
you a free agent at that point, basically? I mean, in terms of how the political hierarchy works in Olympia, rather than following and being under the thumb of leadership.
Well, I think I know where you're going.
You're a free agent and working on behalf of your constituents.
I know where you're going, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess figuratively speaking, that might be true, but
Mm-hmm.
technically speaking,
Mm-hmm.
I never left the Republican caucus.
Right.
I was always
No,
a part
yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Other members have left the Republican caucus. You guys might try to get them on here and ask them about why they betrayed the Republican Party and dropped them into a super minority, but I'm not. I'm trying to play nice right now, and we'll see if that niceness is returned. But I've never left the Republican.
Oh, okay.
But,
Mhm.
so now that said, I politely disagreed with them, and sometimes they were okay with that. Sometimes they weren't. There were penalties. For example, the most overt penalty that you ever saw me take was when I decided to leave and run for the Senate. The first penalty that I had to pay in the legislature was leadership was mad because I had developed a strong following. I became a self-sufficient legislator, and most members in swing districts are not self-sufficient. You're only self-sufficient if you're like in a downtown Seattle,
right?
And you're a Democrat, or if you're in Eastern Washington, and you're a Republican, where you're going to win by 70. You're going to win by 80% if you put out signs.
Right.
You're going to win by 70% if you don't. All right, right. In this district, no Democrat or Republican will never sniff 70%. Right. You're always going to be playing for the independent, and you're going to have a tight race. But to become a self-sufficient legislator in that type of district is a rarity. And so I had become that. And sometimes, so what was the second part of your question? I was going to tie that in.
Oh, you were talking about the penalty you got because you went to the Senate.
So once I decided to do that, I really ticked off leadership, because that meant that they were then going to have to find another candidate to run in my place. And they were going to have to try to support them. They got used to me locking down the seat as a Republican, and they didn't have to fund me because I could do it myself.
Right.
So
now I got it.
My
I put
penalty
those two
was,
together.
if you notice, in the last 2 years, when Emily made that play to hurt the district with the bridge, I couldn't stop it because in the House I was taken off and removed from the Transportation Committee. And that was the penalty that my own caucus made me pay. by taking me off that committee that I was a leader on, that I was negotiating budgets on, and everybody lauded me for my work down there. And instead they took me off that committee because, well, if you're not going to stay in the House, because again, leadership thought that they owned me. They thought that, no, I should stay in the House and make their life easier. Well, I'm like, no, I want to go represent my district in the Senate because I'll be able to more effectively help it.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was a penalty. And so then, of course, when the votes came up in committee, I wasn't able to try to head that thing off of the passing committee because I was off the.
Right.
So those are, but it's politics, right? That stuff happens. I don't cry about it. I'll just figure out another way to be effective.
But what is that saying that our parents used to say? You, something about spiting yourself. You
cut off your nose.
Cut off your nose. Yeah, to spite your face. I mean, basically, isn't that what they did?
Well, most of the members in the House don't care about the bridge because it doesn't affect their district. So that's okay. Yeah. What do you think I'll do when I go back in?
Well, we're going to talk about that because when we get into next hour, I think we're going to break down into some actual issues and topics and specific things. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we've really belabored it on the show, and I'm probably the most vocal voice about this. But I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about it. One of the concerns I have with the Republican Party and the state in general is the rhino not rhino debate and the division that's fractured some of the party. You know, we're seeing it on a kind of a statewide level on this whole Semi Bird and Dave Reichert kind of division. Do you have a thought in that whole process? Like, I'd be much happier if Republicans could do what Democrats do, which is somehow keep their divisions on the back burner and out of public eye. And then they're all kind of rallied together and they're going to vote for Bob Ferguson, even though he is literally the grossest candidate for governor that I think I've seen in my entire lifetime. But any concerns they have about him, they've kept quiet in a back room, and they're not out there for the world to see. And the Republicans are very vocal on the division. Do you have a thought on that as one, a guy of integrity, but also a Republican and member of the party, and also a guy that wants to see a little more conservative values and Republican values returned back to state legislature and state government?
Yeah, well, I've got lots of opinions on those things. The question is, which ones should I share? At least I'm willing to tell you. Okay. First and foremost, I am not willing to risk a night of homelessness or a night of abject hunger for any kid in my district or in this state over a political bickering between squabble in between the party. Because I know what it's like. I know the fear that I had wondering where I was going to lay my head at night. I know what it's like to go days on end without any food. I still remember I can't eat bologna because I had so much government bologna. And the one thing, the biggest memory I have is popping the top on the slender cans of green Parmesan, green colored Parmesan cans that were
stinky cheese.
And because we get them from the welfare thing all the time, and I open the fridge and stare at nothing except there's a green canister of Parmesan, and I pop the top and start downing that just to have something to eat. I will not let a party, an internal party squabble raise to the level of potentially putting that impoverishment on a kid. Absolutely not. It's far more important for me to represent and make sure that these kids have an opportunity and that they know that people are willing to put squabbles behind for the sake and betterment of policy, a good policy. Now, I will tell you, if people thought this year was bad, if we don't maintain at least if we don't keep the Republican caucuses in the legislature, both in the Senate and the House, if we don't keep at least one of them out of a superminority, and ideally if get a Republican governor in over Bob Ferguson, we are going to see a level of destitution and hurt put on low-income people like we've never seen. And so at the end of the day, whether Semi comes out or Reichert comes out, we better unite behind that and put those differences behind us. And anybody that's not willing to get there for the sake of a kid, then they're going to find me arguing with their tactics.
Fair enough. All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to go to the top of the hour news. As we do that, we'll come back on Facebook and chat a little bit more with former and maybe soon to be State Representative Jesse Young. So we'll do that. We got another hour with him at least. And
can't believe you said and maybe.
Well, I mean, listen. I know what I want.
If you smell,
dude, you're like a damn Mariners fan, dude. Just go all in or shut up.
Thanks, Paul. I got 2 words for you, buddy. Suck it. All right, we're gonna go to the top of the hour news. We're back after this. This is Outlaw Radio with Jesse Young on Megatalk.
RadioNetwork.com.
All right, we are back on the Facebook. All right.
Bring it up if you want. I don't care.
So, Jesse, from the chat, Hanny Baxter has a couple comments. The last time I wrote you,
Hold on.
What?
For disclosure purposes, for
Yeah.
people who don't
That's
know,
good,
we do have to set this, right? I mean,
Okay,
just in honesty, Hanny is the chair for the Kitsap Kearney Democrat Party. So I just think that's important. I'm not accusing her or anything. I'm just saying keep that in mind that she is the chair of the Kitsap County Democrat Party. Go ahead,
And faithful member of Paul's Vote for All.
and a big friend of the show too. Like we love Hanny. Hanny tolerates
No, she's a
me.
great gal. I love Hanny.
She
She's
tolerates
awesome.
me. Sometimes she sees me in public. I think she wants to punch me in the nose. But go ahead, Lori.
It's up here on the screen, but also the last time I wrote you, I did not hear back from you. So, and she said that she wrote as a constituent.
Well, so I love Joanna. She knows that. I mean, I know she's supporting the other side. I get that. But Joanna, you know better. You shouldn't have asked me that question, given that you have my personal cell phone number and you can call me anytime, and you have. So if you really wanted me, you should have called me.
Well, and
because she has before. I get the implication there. Let's understand the implication that maybe I'm not responsive to my constituents, and she wants us to go down that track. Well, if I was it is a fact that I was and still am to this day the most publicly available representative in state history, and that's demonstrable. And as a matter of fact, even after COVID, none of the legislators have opened up in district offices. And through COVID and all the way through COVID, I was the only representative or senator. I was the only legislator that 24/7 maintained an in-district office presence for the constituents. So if you wanted to get a hold of me, you could schedule an appointment. Joanna's been at my office. We've met for coffee before. And I deny no one access. I've had multiple Democrat Party chairs in my offices, and I'm proud of that record. I'm proud of having more public town halls in person than any representative in the state during my time there. I haven't kept track of the town halls over this time, so I'm proud of that. Joanna, you can come to any one of my public meetings, and I'll answer any question that you want.
Well, and let's keep this real. Because has anybody seen Emily Randall out walking the streets? Let me rephrase that. That came out completely wrong. Has anybody seen Emily Randall going door to door anytime recently? Right? We haven't seen her except for that 30-minute line of BS that we got from her when she sat in that seat, Jesse. And she made it very clear that Republicans were responsible for all the problems in Washington State prior to 1988. So I think that's again, adore Hanny, like everybody else there. Kind of a disingenuous question. Just saying.
Hey, I appreciate the fact that she's out there fighting for her team. I love that about her because she works extremely hard. And so I get that, but I'm also going to engage it. So I appreciate the opportunity to share the fact that I was the most publicly available state rep in history, and that I was the only one. And by the way, the legislature prohibited legislators from having in-district offices during COVID, and I still maintained one because I paid for it out of my own pocket. That's how serious I took public service and serving the people. If you wanted to meet with me, and I can't tell you how many families come into my casework as a legislator is one of the most undernoticed, underrepresented things that we do, because people are more interested in the votes that we take.
Right.
But being able to support the constituents in your district, especially the ones that can't afford to come drive down to Olympia to meet with you, I think it's abysmal that I can make the claims that I have and be 100% factual on them, because it means that all the other legislators are used COVID or used other reasons as an example to avoid meeting their constituents. And I'll tell you, I guarantee you, she got, if she's honest, she got fewer responses from everybody else in this district than she may or may not have gotten from me.
Well, Handy should just be happy that I'm not a state representative, because my history of not returning messages from beautiful women is long and well documented. So
that's true, Kevin. Yeah,
that's true. All right, we're gonna go back on the full live side. So stick around. It's Outlaw Radio Network. Checking in with Jesse Young, about his run to get back in the house, the state house. So stick around. More of the Outlaw Radio Network right here. This is Mega Talk Radio.
Network.com.
It is not a .com, Paul. Stop that.
Outlaw Radio Network.
.com.
And my hand takes hold of judgment. I will take vengeance upon mine enemies, and I will repay those who hate me. O Lord, raise me to thy right hand and count me among thy saints.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
We must all fear evil men. But there is another kind of evil which we must fear most, and that is the indifference of good men.
All right, it's the Outlaw Radio Network, 9:06 on the 24th of March, or as I call it, IDES plus 9. Thanks for checking out the show. A couple reminders really quick. One, we have Jesse Young in studio with us as he's don't call to come back, as LL Cool J would say, but making to come back to try to take back his seat in the 26th district. And we're going to talk with him in just a couple of seconds. I do want to put a couple just minor announcements out there. One, remember to share the show. If you have not shared the show, share the show. The first Sunday of May, we'll do our regular drawing. We'll give away some Outlaw swag, maybe some T-shirts, maybe some sweatshirts, maybe some yoga pants, the Outlaw thong or boxers or whatever it is you want. We'll let you pick 2 items out of the store. So that's that. Also, keep in mind, Brandy Cruz will be with us, but not on April 7th as she was booked because we were not doing a show that night. It's WrestleMania night. We're going to watch men in tights beat up other men in tights, or as Paul calls it, Sunday mornings in a tank. So we'll do that on April 7th. And then the last thing I want to do is just give another plug. Remember, today's show is brought to you in part by our good friends down there at Black Ring Spirits, the official distiller of the Outlaw Radio Network. Stop in and see Tom, rub his bald little head, and pick up some alcohol.
That's good stuff.
Remember, if Bob Ferguson gets into the governor's office, you're going to want to be drunk a whole lot more often.
No.
So
not want. You're going to need.
You're going to need. So I would stock up now. And if he loses, which is what I'm hoping, then you'll have a lot of alcohol to have a good big party at your house to celebrate a non-Democrat in the governor's office for the first time in literally forever. Vote Jesse Young. Andy says in chat, vote Jesse Young. Come join our Relay for Life of Tacoma Puget Sound team on June 8th. Did you know about that, by the way, Jesse?
Yeah, I was going to ask him.
So Outlaw Radio, we have partnered up with the Pierce County Relay for Life for Tacoma,
Greater Puget Sound.
Pre-COVID, there was a whole bunch of individual events. Bremerton had their own, South Kitsap had their own. COVID came along and they've kind of consolidated a whole bunch of them. And so last year we partnered up and were able to help out with the Relay for Life in Tacoma, and we're going to do it again this year. Yours truly will be the MC, and we're going to have the whole Outlaw crew down there. So you can come down and join us if you want. Bring
we
the
even
fam
have costumes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kevin's wearing chaps. And I think you are too.
Yeah, me and Tom are going to wear assless chaps.
No, your butt has to be covered.
Damn it.
What you do in your house is your own business, okay?
In my house, what I do in the mall. But anyway, we'd love to have you come down and just hang out with us if you want to. And
possibly. It's 2 days. It's 2 days after my wife and I's 27th anniversary. So okay. Maybe I'll be available. Maybe not. And I'll check with the boss.
And I'm going to throw the gauntlet out now. I would just like you to keep in mind that the Outlaw Radio Invitational at the at the Demolition Derby will resume again this year.
What do you mean resume? It hasn't stopped.
I'm just saying.
Who won the last ones? How many?
Debbie's won 2 in a row.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so hold on. Here's the bullcrap with this, Jesse.
I had this last year.
The 3 of them conspired against me.
I have video
because
of it.
they said, we don't care who wins as long as it's not Kevin because his ego will be out of control. And then when the race started, Paul maintained that, making sure I didn't win. And Tom and Debbie were like, screw it. We want to win.
They left me in the dust, man. Those two started racing, and I took Kevin out. It was terrible.
Yeah. So he's working to take me out, and they're going to win the race. And I almost won, but I didn't.
When is that event going to be?
I'll have to look at the dates. Probably September sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let me just throw the gauntlet down. We got to get Travis and Dan and
let's do it.
Okay. These other folks in here, man.
We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll talk with
see
how many cars.
That would be so damn cool, having multiple elected officials. Notice how I assumed the close there, Jesse. Multiple elected officials. I'm not like Kevin, where I'm going, well, maybe if you win, Jesse, I don't know, but if you win, I mean, good luck, but I don't know. No, he's gonna win. Anyway,
I would be extremely motivated to get a number of us Kitsap folks in there and see if we can't do something for charity or something.
Yeah. And Paul, let me just point something out to you to prove your stupidity.
No need to.
The Derby's in
Polish.
September. The election's not till November. So regardless of whether or not.
Yeah. You know what, Kevin? Yeah, you're totally right. I appreciate. I mean, being reminded of that by somebody who can never remember what damn district somebody's in is definitely
26th district for Jesse Young. Thank you very much.
Is definitely something I shouldn't be proud of. Schmuck.
Hey,
okay.
So listen, we were talking on the Facebook side about this, and I just want to get into this a little bit more. There was a comment made in chat by Joanna Baxter, who's a constituent in the 26th, but she's also the head of the Kitsap County Democrat Party. But she had made a comment that she'd written you as a constituent. You didn't get back to her, and you spoke about that specifically. That she has ways to get a hold of you. Obviously, she's really well connected, but just on an overall, like a global scale, within your job when you were a state representative, how many emails, correspondence, contacts are you getting? Weekly, monthly, whatever it is.
Daily.
Daily. It's in the hundreds, sometimes thousands.
Yeah.
Depends on the advocacy. Well, first off, so again, just a note.
That's how many contacts I get weekly from baby mamas, but go ahead.
Wow. Jesse's our official business.
Jesse can't even comment on what I'm saying because he's a smart man, but I'll stick my foot in my mouth. I don't care. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, we get hundreds or thousands, certainly in a week, thousands. And what you need to understand is that number of thousands is only 8% of the volume. 92% of the volume that our servers get hit are with spam, and the majority of that is originating in Asia.
Oh,
really?
Yeah,
really?
There's constant security attacks and volume attacks and all sorts of different IT things. And so the states are always getting bombarded with this. So when I tell you thousands, those thousands are based off of only about 8% of the overall traffic. And then that's where your thousands come in. Next, what you get is you get a lot of automated traffic that within that 8% that still hits your inbox. And so what every legislator has the prerogative to set up their office and run it the way that they want to. And the first way that I chose to do that, and we talked about that during the break, was that I chose to open up in district office and make it completely available. I think it's wrong. And I think to force constituents, especially your low income and working class constituents, to have to try to drive down to Olympia to meet with you. I think you should be held accountable. So I was proud to be the most publicly available representative during my time there. I mean, by a wide margin. And then I also chose to double down on in-person town halls, holding more than any other legislator, whether it's a senator or rep during that time. I was proud to do that. And I was proud that I could tell you that the multiple Democrat Party chairs have my personal cell phone number, including Joanna, and that I made myself available to them through those routes. So now let's go back to that traffic. A number of legislators, when they go down there, most people don't realize that their staff is assigned to them. They come in, caucus leadership will tell them, hey, we've got a bevy of, experienced legislative aides that have worked in other districts or other offices, and we'd like to kind of keep them employed. Why don't you take one of those? I chose not to do that when I came in. I wanted to hire somebody that was going to be focused on my district.
Right. Okay.
More importantly, I was dead set on making sure that confidentiality was maintained. So if a constituent came into my office, I want to treat that way. I don't care their party affiliation. I don't care what their issue is.
Mhm.
I wanted them to trust that there was going to be a level of confidentiality and trust that they could have, that their issue would be taken serious, and that that bond of trust wouldn't be broken.
Right.
So part and parcel of doing that was making myself available, even
Mhm.
out of my own expense, to be available to folks. And that's why I always maintained that open office policy. But a lot of these legislators, they go down there and they say, look, you want one of these legislative aides to work for you because they're really good at just handling all the emails that come through. And so most legislators don't ever see their own email. People are getting a crafted response back that is crafted by a seasoned bureaucrat
Mhm.
that is taking care of it. And they think that the rep is responding. But
No.
I would tell you that a good 70% of the reps down there never see an email from a constituent their entire time. What most people don't realize is that baked into our budgets is a backdoor access to every executive branch agency in the state. So if you, as a constituent, email my office or the typical office, what do? You get a legislative aide that takes the email, doesn't notify the rep. They respond to you sometimes, sometimes they don't.
Right.
And then what they do, suppose you really had an issue that could be handled. The rep's office doesn't handle it for you. What do? That legislative aide is tied into a list of all these, they call them legislative liaisons. The Department of Education has one, the OSPI has one, the Department of Ecology, Department of Transportation, Department of Commerce, any of these executive branch agencies run by the governor, the legislative aide that isn't necessarily intimate to your district because they may have been representing someone or serving in or working for other legislator that just retired the year before.
Mhm.
They will then funnel you to that backdoor legislative liaison whose whole job is to then take it from there. So the rep never gets involved. And I don't serve that way. If you come into my office, we're going to get involved. And I'm going to make sure that now, if that's the right path, we'll let you know that we're going to send you down that path.
Mhm.
So what I demanded was that level of access didn't avoid me or didn't evade me.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that I was getting some level. So now here you're getting bombarded with just, even though it's only 8% of the traffic that comes through, you're getting deluged with emails. And a lot of it is politically based. A lot of it is spam based. A lot of it is AI, now it's probably AI generated, but bot generated
Mhm.
or server generated.
Right.
And so since I was intimate with how this worked, because I didn't want my legislative aide just to go, canned and give a canned response and then
Right.
keep it off my plate. What I noticed was that there's a difference between a real constituent asked question versus something that was auto generated.
Right.
Mhm.
And so what I told my staff to do was, if it's auto generated, that either doesn't get responded to. How do you tell if it's auto generated? If 100 emails come in with the exact same subject line,
Right. Yeah.
because some advocacy group is
Fill out this form.
fill out
Put
this
in
form.
your email and your name.
Those always got second priority to a constituent that was
Right.
writing for their own issue.
Right.
And when you're getting scores of those, I felt, and I always shared this,
Mhm.
Hanny knows this, I've talked about it publicly when I was serving, that those always got top billing. And if you are coming in from a known political route, or if you're just trying to score a political point, or if you're coming through some automated form and you're not legitimately engaging, I am willing to stand on that. I'm going to prioritize a real constituent case ahead of that. Now, Hanny is the head of the Democrat Party in this area.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry, Hanny, but I'm going to put and prioritize someone that's trying to get their kid back from DSHS, or
Right.
somebody that's trying to get their unemployment check paid. And and so I've always been very clear about how I handle those. And again, Hanny, you had my number. If that was legitimate, you wanted to get a hold of me, you could have always called my personal cell phone number, which you have. But that's how I handle that.
Right.
Every other office does it differently. And I encourage you to ask these questions if anybody comes through. How are you going to do it? Because I think that's the right way to do it.
Mhm.
I think it's right to prioritize the real people
Right.
calling with a need. And so that's how I run my office.
I appreciate that. I really do. And I agree with it totally. I had no idea. I knew the canned responses because I do write
Mhm.
and can be a thorn in people's sides,
Yeah, sure.
because I
Including
just want
ours.
answers. Yeah, I know. Anyways, but I didn't realize it was basically feeding a bureaucratic pipeline.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And in your opinion, isn't that kind of taking you out of the equation and feeding that bureaucratic pipeline even further and giving them more of the power?
It's an astute point. I mean, I think if people can pair your question just now with some of the topics we talked about in the first hour with regard to how leadership wants to kind of have this paradigm. They want you to buy into a paradigm that you're working for them as opposed to your own boss.
Right.
Because they cannot fire you.
Right.
Only the voters can choose to go in a different direction every 2 years.
Right.
So if they compare those questions, what they're going to see is that they want the bureaucratic solution to be the adopted paradigm of every elected politician down there. I don't think that's the right way. And one of the things I do down there, and the reason why I get a lot of back channel bipartisan querying is because I've carved out a very successful way of how to consider these things. So for example, I don't believe, most people don't realize this. They don't realize first off that we're not full-time. We are not full-time.
Right.
We're only down there for a certain time. We are expected to go back to our jobs. So when I'm done with session, I go back and work a 9 to 5.
Right.
The only person that's staying there is the staff, that legislative aide.
Oh,
okay.
They
stay.
Okay.
They
Didn't
represent the
realize
office,
that.
but
Okay.
most of them are down in Olympia.
Right.
They're not
Right.
holding in district office. I think
Right.
that's bad.
Yeah.
I think that you should be able to get a hold of your legislator.
Right.
Number one, which is why, again, I always maintained, even at my own expense, an office that I could use.
Right.
Next. The next thing is they don't realize that we don't hire our own staff. We have, as legislators in Washington State, people assume that we kind of operate the way Congress does. And the way Congress operates is that if you get elected to Congress, you get when I ran for it over a decade ago, the number was you got $2 million for staff. You could allocate that $2 million however you wanted up to 18 paid positions. So you could choose to have 10 really good paid people and maybe hire for competence and or you could maybe alter that and have 18 people that aren't as paid as much. Any amalgamation you wanted to come up with. But at the end of the day, you are the boss of that office and you control the hiring and firing process, period. It doesn't work that way in Olympia. The clerk's office, which is hired by the speaker, in this case, by the Democrat speaker, the clerk's office is the agency that hires your staff.
Wait, what?
So as
Say that one more time.
So as an elected Republican, the clerk who is hired by the Democrat speaker, they are the agency that hires my staff.
Oh,
Think there might be a conflict
yeah,
there?
Who's going to get the best staff members in there? Yeah.
Well, on top of that,
not only that, just
they're the ones that set the schedule. I can remember when I first came in 2014, I found out 3 weeks. I hadn't even filled out all my HR paperwork because, again, remember, I was appointed mid-session. So I got down there and then it was just like a fire hose figuring everything out. And I had no orientation. I had none of the benefits that you get if you're elected first.
Right.
I had to learn all of it on the fly. So I hadn't even filled out my own paperwork. I wasn't even getting paid yet.
Oh,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I had my legislative aide. So when I got down there, they handed me a stack of resumes, said, we want you to pick one from here. And I said, no, thank you. I want you to hire that person. And it was like pulling teeth to get them to even consider it. Now I had the right to get them to consider that person. And then when they couldn't disqualify him, I said, all right, they're not disqualified. Hire that staffer. So they did. They made that staffer's life a living nightmare. And all of a sudden, 3.5 weeks in, my staff comes to me, my legislative aide, and they go, my pay is getting docked. Are you docking my pay? And I go, what are you talking about? I don't even know about my pay yet. I mean, all I'm doing is going to committees trying to understand legislation. Right. And she goes, they're docking my pay. And I go, why? She says, I don't know. And so I called up the clerk's office and said, why are you docking my staffer's pay? They said, well, because she's leaving at 5.
What?
And I said, what's wrong with that? And
yeah,
they go, well, we demand that your legislative aide stays as long as you're here. And if we have floor action, your legislative aide has to stay at your desk. And I go, excuse me, that should be my prerogative.
Right.
And I told her that she could go. I didn't need her. She's got kids to take care of.
Yeah.
And so they were like, well, that's our rule. And I said, garbage. Prove to me in law where it says you have that right to dictate my office. And so they had to concede. So again, this is where Jesse negotiates hard. I demanded not only that they don't dictate her time. I get to, if I want her to go home and she wants to go home, she can go and give her payback. And they did. They weren't happy about it.
Oh yeah.
But people don't realize that that's the way that staffers operate down there. And so when you get an office that's being run that way, they want to keep. Now think of how bureaucratic that is.
Yeah, that's extremely. And not only that, but it's illegal.
Yeah, what they were doing was illegal, and that I just happen to know a lot of HR laws, and so I was able that may have come up in our conversations. That maybe an HR claim is going to get filed here with an executive branch for what you're doing to this. But think of, I mean, that is an undue amount of control on a legislative office. Wow. The executive branch nor the clerk's office should have the right to dictate that. So what a better model would be to allow for us to run our own offices. We should get a budget that we are accountable to, that is transparent for all of you to see. Yeah. But I should be able to hire my own staffer, fire my own staff, and handle it just the way that they do it in Congress, so that the autonomy and independence of each legislative office for the sake of the constituents is maintained. Because when you've got a bureaucracy down there, you are not necessarily getting represented by your representative. You're getting represented by a paid staffer that they thrust upon your representative, that your representative may not even known they could have said no to.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the right way to do
correct.
Business.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, if
this stuff never comes up in the campaign cycle, right?
No.
When you're running every 2 years, you're forced into 30-second sound bites to try to convince people to talk about, which is one of the reasons why I always love this format. You guys are happy. I mean, I'm assuming that I'm not droning on with content that is boring to you, and that we're covering good stuff, but you give me the time to explain it. And I think that people find that valuable.
I think it's really important. I think that one of the worst things that's happened to our populace and the lemming voters is we're just feeding 30-second sound bites, and people are not able to put it into context. So they hear Jesse say one thing that when taken out of context is like, did he really just say that? And then you hear it in the entire context of the whole thing and it makes sense. Yeah, we're not going to make you explain it, but you know, one of the things you proposed early on was the idea of using old aircraft carriers to help take care of a bridge across Sinclair. Was it Sinclair Inlet or whatever that inlet is there by Gorse or whatever?
I thought that was Dyes.
Or Dyes
no,
Inlet.
Dyes is Silverdale.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the initial
Sinclair.
response from everybody is, well, that's stupid. Until you heard the explanation and the reasoning behind it. And because I thought when I first heard it, like that doesn't make any sense. And then you hear the whole process and then it makes sense.
Oh yeah. I remember that. I remember that a person I interviewed here before, a certain school board member from Bremerton, ran against me in the primary and tried to make that the issue. And then we got on here and it came out, she was trying to make it sound like a dumb idea, except she found out that not only did my seatmate voted for it, but it was voted out unanimously by the legislature because it was such a good idea. And that would have solved a lot of our Gorse traffic problems overnight.
Sounds like the kind of woman that would drive her husband to.
Oh, I'm not touching that.
All right, Paul, come on. All right, we're going to go to the bottom of the hour break. Paul's going to remove his foot from his mouth.
I just said it.
Paul's going to take his foot out of his mouth. We're going to come back on the Facebook site, check out some comments in chat, and then we'll spend the next half hour talking issues. Jesse Young in studio with us here on Outlaw. We're back after this. Outlaw Radio. Hello to our good friends at Dark Horse Political. Thanks for checking out the show. We appreciate you.
Spicy.
He wants to make it spicy. Other comments in chat. Margie said that's despicable. Legislators make plenty of money. Use it to monitor constituents' comments. And Margie, I think that Jesse did a good explanation as to why.
Yeah. Could I add to that? No, actually, they don't make a lot of money.
No.
There's not a lot of money. It's why it's hard to get good people like Jesse to run, because the pay is not the equivalent, even close to what they can make in the private sector. So,
well, and then again, I think every 2-year cycle is grueling. I know it's written into the state constitution, but I just think it's ridiculous. But Phil,
no, I think to be fair, from what I understand, legislatures, they make a small fortune. They have to start with a large one, and they turn it into a small.
Sorry,
I know
my wife has kind of had that opinion. We've lost. I mean, you can see it; it's all available, publicly available. We have to file what's called an F1, and we have to make our financials. You can easily go out and see how much money I've lost doing this. But I was doing it. I wasn't feeding you a line. I wasn't feeding the people a line when I said I'm in this, because I want to carve out a better future for people. And if that means that I got to sacrifice some income, but I make way more on the private sector as an engineer and IT guy than I
Oh,
do in the
yeah.
legislature, way more. And I have to give up I have to say no to a lot of lucrative contracts to do the legislature.
All right, we're gonna head back on the full broadcast. So stick around. Jesse Young in studio, K-Dog Black Tom, St. Paul from Paradise Cove, and then
Just
Lori
say
and Bob
it's St.
Ross in
Paul,
here as
dude.
well.
You don't need to
Paul,
throw
shut up.
some
You can't
weird
censor my
slam
speech.
in
I'm a
about
constitutional
my house.
scholar. Shut up. Outlaw Radio. We're back.
Oh
after
yeah, we could tell that one.
Constitutional scholar.
Not yeah. Mm-hmm. You are. You're a smart guy. I give you props.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
All right, Outlaw Radio. Thanks for checking out the show. Jesse Young in studio as he announced last weekend that he has re-entered the political arena and he'll be going to get his old seat back. Again, the seat's currently held by Spencer Hutchins, who has announced he's not going to run for re-election, and Jesse's going to try to step back into that role. So thanks for taking some time on a Sunday, the week before Easter.
My absolute pleasure.
And by the way, happy Resurrection Day, since I won't, if I don't talk to you between now and then.
Thank you very
Happy
much.
Resurrection Day.
Hey Kevin, can I have the floor for just a sec? I by the way, I know that I'm supposed to message you when I want to jump in, but this keeps dropping me every time I try to do that. So
okay, go ahead, buddy.
But anyway, I just wanted to tell Jesse, thank you. I owe you a sincere debt of gratitude. I had actually, and nobody, I think Kevin might be aware of this, but so my wife and I had the discussion when we found out that Spencer wasn't going to run again. I had considered throwing my hat in the ring. So it came as a bit of a shock to Kevin when he mentioned to us in the chat that you were going to announce and that you were preparing to run again. And I was like, okay, great. Then then I'm not going to. And so Kevin was like, oh wait, you were thinking about it? And I was like, yeah, I was actually thinking about it. So let me say this to you. So thank you for ensuring that I do not have to go through that hell that is running for political office. Because my wife was very happy when she heard that you were running again. So that was an excellent position to be in. And the second thing, if you need any assistance, like I said, I'm out here on the Key Peninsula. I'm living in Vaughan, man. If you need any help with any events or anything, I will absolutely make myself available to help you under any circumstances. All you got to do is ask. So I'm a firm believer that when you can put your heart and soul behind a candidate, man, you got to give it all. It's like a marriage, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
You bet. I'll call you.
Awesome.
I'm
Yeah,
available. I'm available.
Well, if you ever run for governor, then Paul can be your. They don't. You don't run with the vice guy. But president, you're the president. You can have Paul be your vice president.
I do have a question. It's kind of piggybacking off of one of the things Kevin brought up earlier. Is we are seeing very similar behavior and words as we saw during the Culp gubernatorial race, with different portions of the Republican Party. I mean, taking shots, just nasty, nasty shots at other people within the party. And I'm just curious as to your thoughts. Do you feel fairly confident that most of the people can get past this? I felt it got so nasty with the Freed and Culp stuff and their supporters, and I'm starting to see it again. I mean, people that we all know posting just like below the belt shots at candidates because they don't like them, right? I was always under the impression that as conservatives and as Republicans, the idea was we were all free to express ourselves, right? And not bludgeon each other half to death because another Republican has a different choice in the damn primaries. It's the primaries, man. Let the best man win. And I don't understand it. I'll never understand it, especially some of the people that are doing it that I expected a lot more from.
Well, and just to give an example too, I mean, Lauren Culp went on record on Twitter. He's not an active player politically, but he certainly is influential in circles. And
he has name recognition.
Yeah, and he came out and called Travis Couture a bitch. Like that's a quote from his Twitter, right? I mean that's the kind of vitriol and division that I think you're talking about, Paul. But Jesse, go ahead.
It is. Yep.
Well, the first thing is I would love to make an amendment or get get a piece of legislation passed that would move our primary up. I really think it does our state a disservice by having effectively a campaign cycle that is 9/10 primary and 1/10 general. Because by waiting till election year, it makes it really hard in instances like you just described, a statewide race where you have multiple candidates. It makes it hard to coalesce and unite together. I mean, it not only practically because you just got about 75 days from the primary to the general, but think about it. Even if you weren't personally ticked off at the guy that beat you in the primary, and I know what that feels like. I took 2 primary losses in my first 2 races. It's kind of a rite of passage. If you're really going to want to invest in getting Travis knows that. Travis took a couple L's. It's part of it's kind of how you separate the people that are really in it for the right reasons or not, because they'll take a longer term play towards it and they'll stick into it. And it's one of the things I really respect about Travis. He didn't quit.
No, he did not.
L's
Absolutely. Yeah.
So even if you don't have a beef with your primary guy, you're still suffering from the defeat because you put a lot into it. And so it'd be better if we had more time just for people to get over that. Because I'll tell you, when I took an L, I didn't want to talk to anybody for a couple of weeks. Give me some space. But a couple of weeks in a 75-day period of time is a lot of time. And so, if one of the statewide candidates were to take a defeat, you need to give them you got to heal from it, man. It was you put in a 2-year, sometimes more period of time, effort into it. You blood, sweat, and tears. And okay, so Mac, just generally speaking, from human nature, it'd be better if we had more time for that to heal.
And additionally, just I don't mean to interrupt, but additionally, not only with the candidate, but also with the grounds and everybody on the ground running, right?
Because a lot of people bleed with you.
Yeah, because if Semi Bird, let's use Semi for example, if Semi loses in the primary, there's a lot of people that are really highly invested in his campaign. They're going to be hurt as well. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be mad at Reichert. They're going to be mad at the people that didn't back their guy. And they're going to need time to come around as well, right? And they could be really influential on the ground if they have that time to heal and then come back into the ranks and do what needs to happen to move the party forward. Just I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, no, I when I was running in my first races and I lost in primary, people that know me and frequent listeners of the show know that I have a lot of libertarian streak in me. I'm very constitutional. I'm not just sold out for my party. I have the most, statistically, the most bipartisan voting record because I will vote for constitutional things. And if that means I got to vote against my own party, I will. From that standpoint, when I first ran, I was running in the primary against the libertarian. And I remember a lot of libertarians, think about this, when I was first running, the libertarians were calling me the establishment guy. And one of my fondest memories as an early politician was when that bridge that gap finally got bridged, and a lot of libertarians said, wait a second, they said that you were an establishment, so we fully expected you to kind of go that route, but your voting record, look at that. Wow. The Freedom Index, I think I've got 100% score on the Freedom Index, one of the few legislators in the state that can say that. Okay. So from the standpoint of being framed one way because it was politically right is another politically advantageous is the correct way to say it, by your opponent to get a primary victory. That then also makes it hard because you get a lot of cult of personality followers to some candidates, and they end up believing some of the narrative that's spun by opponents because the opponents know that could potentially whip up more support for them. I fear that's certainly occurring. I know it's occurring right now. What I would say is, look, if you're going to be an invested voter for any candidate, really dig into that candidate. It's easy to tell people what they want to hear. Go look at the behind the scenes. If they say they're going to be fiscally responsible, are they being fiscally responsible in the way that they run their campaign? Go look at the details of that campaign. Are they running it with integrity? Are they asking for transparency, but are they giving it? There's a lot of things like this that people got to go dig into, and that are tells, because I have seen far too many people say one thing on the campaign trail, then get elected, go down to Olympia and utterly just kick that to the curb and do something else because they know that most people are too busy with their 9 to 5 to really hawk in on that. So when you're doing your candidate research, if you're going to really be an invested volunteer, an invested voter for somebody, make sure you do the digging.
Yeah.
That might help you come to your own conclusions without feeling like you got to concede to the point of someone who's supporting somebody else. That would be one way for people to kind of get level set on their own without feeling like they're making a concession. So I would advise that, especially to any Semi or Dave people out there. Go look at your guys and look at the under scenes. What I would say though is at the end of the day, when this primary season is done, I'm telling you as a conservative, if Dave is the guy, I will be 100% behind Dave. And if you tell me that you love Semi, great. I love some of the things. I love most of the things that Semi is speaking. I love that he would, if that's the way he would legislate from, you're going to find a supporter in me. Mm-hmm. I love that stuff. I've always stood for it, but I don't know how Semi is going to vote. It's a risk that we're all taking, but I love what he's saying. And I agree with more of his political points than Dave. But at the same time, if Dave wins, I'm going to be 100% because Bob Ferguson will attack your family so severely. And in his desire to go on the offensive and attack, Jay Inslee is 100% sold out to the progressive left. That's fine. But every Democrat will tell you too, the guy's an idiot. He's not a smart guy. He knows how to work a room and charm voters.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So he's got that, but that guy is not intelligent. And anybody that's ever been in a negotiating room with him, and I have been, will tell you that guy is not smart. That was at least some of the relief that we had in the legislature over the past decade. Well, at least he's not smart. Can you imagine how much more he would have gotten passed that was progressively bad for everyday folks if he were smart?
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, that's Bob Ferguson.
Yep.
That dude is maniacal and he is wicked smart. You got to put this beef behind. We got to get a governor in there that will stand up. And so if it's Semi, great. I'm 100% behind Semi. If it's Dave, great. I'm 100% behind Dave because we've got to reconcile that. And I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, if you like someone that's proven it with his voting record and you're in this, make sure if you don't get the guy that you want. So if it's Dave and you were inclined for Semi at the top of the ticket, I'm begging you, still turn in your damn ballot and at least vote for me.
That's right.
Because I'll hold either.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, because as a legislator, I will hold either of those guys accountable.
Mm-hmm.
You have my pledge.
Okay. Let's talk about some issues really quick. I'm sorry, Paul, do you have more on follow up to that? Are you good?
No. The conversation I think couldn't be going any better. I think people that don't know Jesse are getting a real opportunity right now to get to know and understand him for sure.
Let's do some topics kind of rapid fire, just because I want to get through some stuff. And I'm going to start with.
I'm curious before you do that, if I may. I want to know if the viewers think or the listeners think I'm being transparent. Am I being candid and transparent? You guys like what I'm doing or?
Put your answers in the chat.
That was always what my target was. I want to know, am I over target? I'm trying to be transparent and give you the real deal. Sometimes my answers are a little bit more elongated because I'm trying to give you the real, I'm trying to pull back the covers.
Yeah.
But hopefully people appreciate that.
I do have one question for you.
Okay.
So when you were talking about the primary, I agree with you. Primary to a general election is too close. Mm-hmm. Did it used to be earlier in the year? I thought it was at one point.
Oh, if it was long before I got in. I'd have to go look.
Okay. But yeah, I agree with you because as an independent, I'm watching both sides. Obviously, I'm not a Bob Ferguson fan, but
whatever, you are too.
I am not.
She's a life-size blow-up doll of Bob Ferguson at the house.
Hey, did you guys know that I have a primary challenger right now who's running as a Republican but has financially supported Bob Ferguson on the PDC and donated to his campaign?
Really?
He's running as a Republican. Well, I'm not going to give you his name.
Oh, okay.
He's got his own media.
Wow.
It's an imposter.
Democrats will do anything they can, including running a Democrat as a Republican.
Yeah.
Apparently, these guys don't think that you can go check out their PDCs and see that they've given to Bob Ferguson. They've given to Victoria Woodard. They've given to all these other Democrats. Think you don't know that. Good luck.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, really quick, rapid fire. Let's get into some topics and just some platform, some issue stuff. I'm going to start with the most glaring one, which, I'm sorry, one of the most glaring ones.
Yes, I am that cool.
Oh, well, we know you're that cool. Listen, Jay Inslee has put forth plans to convert this state over to electric-powered vehicles by 2030 exclusively. You won't be able to buy anything.
Oh, I have a rant about that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. You won't be able to get to anything or purchase anything that's gas powered after that date unless it's a used car or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? is it really a risk to really go through? Because and as an IT guy, obviously you know about supply and demand, and as a businessman, I don't think the grid's prepared for that.
Well, I mean, so they already got the bill passed to start to force people to convert over to from gas heat to electric. But that policy and the entire arc of that policy should be branded by the Republican Party as the guaranteed homeless and hunger act, because what it will do to your low income and your middle income is it will force food off the table, and it will force people out of their homes. Because what do you think every landlord that has to start to convert over is going to do to their rent? To
Jack
pay
up
for
rent.
that?
Yep.
And you're going to, they are, and Ferguson will make, if Inslee doesn't get it all the way done, Ferguson will drive it home with the Democrats, and they will, and this is where I have to guard my heart from taking offense, because I'm looking at Democrats supporting that. I'm like, that's going to hurt your constituents. That's going to take food off of little Tommy's plate, and that's going to make it harder for little Sally to have a home over her head. That's happening. And, but again, constituents aren't really forcing them to own up to it. And again, this is the reason why most legislators don't want to have in district offices, and they don't want to be publicly available, because they don't want Michelle, who's the mom of little Timmy, to come in saying, why can't I put food on the table for him? Why can't I afford to heat my home? Or why can't I put a roof over his head? That is fundamentally my preeminent concern. I will honor always my oath to office, because I have to maintain my integrity before the Lord and the oath that I took for the voters. Secondary to that, I want to make sure that Timmy's got a roof over his head and Sally's got food on the plate. And
Can we, and I said this last week, can we get rid of the narrative that Democrats are somehow the party of the poor and the minorities? Because all of these economic agendas that they're pushing through are exponentially impacting the poor and the minorities far worse than anybody else. When the gas price is what the gas price is, and we've seen it double in this state since Biden took office, it exponentially impacts the poor more, because the price per gallon is exactly the same for everybody, but it's a higher percentage of their income that they're losing when that goes up. When we require rent payments to go up because of adjustments that have to be made by landlords, that exponentially impacts the poor, because it's a higher percentage of their income. When we make people buy electric vehicles, but it's going to be $25,000 to swap out the batteries, that's not something you can ask, and you can't finance that. I'm just sick of the narrative that the Democrats are the party for the poor and for the minority.
Did you know that Washington State, again, we just won this honor again, dubious honor. Washington State has been voted, and I'd have to dig up the metric on the article I was reading, the most corrupt state in the union again.
Yep, I knew that. In fact, the same time I was reading about that, did you know that right now, from a housing standpoint, Washington State is the fourth most expensive median home price in the country, only after New York, California, and Hawaii. After those
I'm well aware of that. Yeah.
And so think of what that's doing for the average person that wants to be a homeowner. And Jay Inslee, in the 12 years, has doubled the budget from 38 billion approximately to 70 plus billion. And where has the benefit come from all that extra money? You've literally doubled. So what the state was providing in all these services just 12 years ago, you've now doubled the amount of money. You haven't, where'd it go? It's all been flushed down the toilet, and we don't have more housing. Where are all the project homes that you promised? Where's all the additional housing that would drive down costs? It's not there.
Why don't we have nice roads?
Why don't we have nice roads?
Why don't we? Exactly.
I drive a lot of roads,
and that you were serving at the time. That ignores the fact that during COVID we had a surplus of like $4 billion. That could have been other states have sent out rebates. It could have been used to keep us from having to increase taxes on other stuff to cover stuff. And they blew through that $4 billion like a 9-year-old who just got his allowance, and then they still came back and asked for more.
If I had $1 billion, I would have the money ideally to start finding ways to reach voters with these types of considerations. But you don't. So you got to hope that some of them are starting to wake up. You certainly see it nationally from the minority communities with the percentages of Latino and Black voters that are like, oh, heck no, Biden, you only want my vote. They're starting to realize you only come around for my vote. They started to do it in 2020. It wasn't enough. But the amount of people that are funneling over to Trump because, well, at least we had a job. At least I could put food on my kids' table. And I'm hoping that that's starting to filter down here and that they'll get it.
Yep.
I mean, it was tough to lose by just a small number of votes in my last election. And what bothers me is to wonder how many people thought by voting for my Democrat opponent then that person was actually going to support them having lower rent or cheaper gas or less expensive food.
Mm-hmm.
And instead they are out of their home. They have to live farther away from work. So now they have to drive more and it's more expensive to drive there. And now their margins are down to the point where little Timmy's, they have to go to the food bank to try to make sure they got food on the table. That really, I hope that they're waking up because it's when the Democrats continue to run tax the rich and will pay for the poor, but then do everything on the back end to grease a bureaucratic mess that only makes the problems worse and ends up giving all the money to their donors, which is easily documentable. But the Republicans have to come in and say, wait a second, no, you don't want to, there's not enough money with the rich to change this problem anyways. I mean, look, Inslee doubled the budget, apparently off the back of the rich. Yet if you go look, most of that increase is being burdened by or being paid off the burden of the middle class and low income.
Yep.
That's where he got most of that money from. He didn't get it from the rich. There wasn't that much money to get from the rich.
No.
But when
they've left.
Well, they have left. But when you're trying, or they've gone broke.
Yeah.
And he's forced these people from being entrepreneurial down into having to work at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And who wants to work at McDonald's their whole career? Nobody. Okay. So
the fries are good.
And they're no longer driving.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking the bus. Mm-hmm. See, it's funneling these guys down into, and at the same time, the Speaker of the House who represents the district I grew up in Tacoma, all the minority communities that is where my mom could afford to live, they're all still dilapidated. They don't have enclosed sewer. They still got all the street drainage on the sides, and yet her north end part where all of her yuppie friends and Democrat elite live is the schools have been rebuilt 2 or 3 times since I was a kid. Yet all the poor schools are all boarded up and dilapidated. It just drives me crazy. I hope that they're going to wake up to it because our play just takes a little bit longer to explain. Mm-hmm. Look, we want to get the economy going so that you have choices, right? So that you have opportunity, not guaranteed outcomes that only the rich benefit from. There are Democrat elite donors benefit from. We want to give everybody an equal playing field and give you the opportunity through hard work and hustle to outwork these guys that are fat and lazy on the hog.
Yep.
All right, let me ask this, and this is close to my heart just because of personal stuff I've been through. The legislator passed in the last legislative session the Parents' Bill of Rights in regards to school and curriculum and that type of thing. I don't think it's enough. We still allow 13-year-olds and above to make their own medical decisions and define things. I've got a 17-year-old daughter on the streets. We know she's doing fentanyl. We can't make her come home, and the state won't compel her to do anything, so they just basically let her do it. And as a parent, I'm neutered in my ability to have anything to say about it. Yep. What should the legislature do? How would you respond to that situation of kind of where we've just let 13-year-olds and above just basically have carte blanche and decisions over their lives?
Well, and it's worse, right? Because the legislature voted to allow elected officials to hide your kid from you. Mm-hmm. That is law. That is state law right now. So that if a kid comes to them with whatever problem, they can justifiably find a place for that kid to leave without notifying the parent, send them there. And then when the parent calls the police, saying, hey, I'm filing a missing kid report, the police can't help them legally. The police are not allowed to give them any answers. And by law, these officials are not culpable for hiding your kid from you. Mm-hmm. That was one of the preeminent reasons I think that my wife got behind this decision for me to jump back in, because we want to protect everyone. We want to protect our kids. We want to protect our right to raise our kids. Mm-hmm. That has always been a foundational stone of our republic. Our constitutional republic in this country has been that we honor parental rights. We don't allow some elite group of people to come in and tell you how to raise your kid. Mm-hmm. We've always trusted parents, and now you've got government saying, and you got these elected officials saying that no, government, it takes a tribe, it takes a village, and yes, government has a say, and these people believe it. And that was honestly, that was the number one issue that we dealt with in my office, was the number of parents that were coming in because their kids had been snatched by DSHS or somebody else without any recourse. And if they don't have money to go get lawyers, they were utterly, I mean, they're in tears in your office, begging you to find a way to help them. And it was one of the most gut wrenching aspects of my job. And then you had these legislators that voted to allow, they voted for these bills last year, 1469 and 52 something. I can't remember the companion Senate bill, 5299 maybe. They voted for these bills that allows this police state and this government bureaucracy to hide your kids from you and step into the gap, or the parent-child relationship. So the Parental Bill of Rights, Initiative 2081, was, to me, the most important thing that the legislature did this year. And that's why, a lot of people may not know this, but if they're watching their TVs anywhere in Pierce or Kitsap County, I partnered with an organization called One Washington, and we ran a very targeted messaging, cable buy and streaming campaign, and we forced the issue. We ran it a heck of a lot in the Speaker's District in Tacoma, because we wanted the constituents of these Democrat leaders to know that parental rights matter to their constituents too. Even if they vote Democrat, that doesn't mean they're voting for you to give government carte blanche over their family decisions. And I'm proud to have played a part, even if a small part, of in getting that initiative passed, because that to me is one of the foundational stones that we must preserve and protect, so that parents have a right to raise their kids. And the stuff that they're doing in Olympia is just dangerous. By the way, Washington is the number one state for sex trafficking in the country now, because of these laws, because all the sex traffickers know that they can come here and they can, under the guise of government, hide the kids, and police aren't able to, are not able to help them.
Yeah. Well, and listen, there was my daughter was found at a homeless encampment by a Kitsap County Sheriff's deputy, who then called her mom and said, well, I told her I wouldn't tell you guys where she's at, so I'm not going to tell you. I mean, and that's
thanks. I appreciate what the guy's doing there, but think of what he just risked. He risked his entire career by not telling you that what he wasn't telling you. Right. And you understand what they're doing, but police shouldn't have to do that. Police should be able to help you. And you gotta wonder what risks your daughter was exposed to there,
and what she's still being exposed to. If people want to get in contact with you, if they want to get more information on the campaign, if they want to donate to your campaign, all that kind of stuff, what's the way to do that?
The website is votejesseyoung.com, votejesseyoung.com. And if you want to email us at info@votejy.com.
Awesome. Can we do this again?
Yeah, man.
Can we get you in again sometime?
Absolutely.
Soon? I just feel like every time we talk 2 hours tonight, I could probably do another 5 more. There's just so much and so much to talk about. And we haven't even really hit the tip of the iceberg on the issues that the state's facing, and what 4 more years of Democrat oligarchy rule in the state of Washington, what 4 more years of that would look like and what it would do.
Kevin, that's a good question. Can I follow up with one question for Jesse?
Yes, just
we've
really
had
quick.
We've had a change in leadership within the Republican Party in Washington State. What are your thoughts on that?
That was a big factor for me getting back in, because it was that established leadership that I didn't get along with. They're the ones that wanted to perpetuate that I worked for them instead of working for the voters or for the constituents. And so they're not going back. Them not being back is a major opportunity for me to come in and bring a solid leader, experienced voice of reason to the legislature and start to lead on behalf of the state. And I intend to do that. And
beautiful.
Look, man, if people want somebody that will stand in the gap regardless and take the arrows and slings and all the stones that they sling at me, I don't care what they call me. I don't care if they say I'm mean. I will stand in the gap for you. I don't care your party affiliation. I don't care your economic status. I will go and I will fight hard. And I think my track record proves that I'm that fighter that you want to protect your kid and stand up for your rights. I'll do it.
Jesse, thanks for coming in, man. Thanks for spending some time with us.
My absolute pleasure.
Have a good Resurrection Day. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
We'll see you at my house at the WrestleMania party, I'm hoping, and we'll watch men beat each other with chairs. It'll be good fun. And then let's you and I chat. We'll set up another follow up and have you come in again.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Awesome,
for
buddy.
sure.
All right, Jesse Young.
Thank you. God bless
again,
Jesse. Thank you.
Hey, God bless you.
Find him on Facebook. Vote Jesse Young. Follow him. Make donations to the campaign if you believe in what he's standing for. If you don't know, then do some more research and reach out to him too.
You knew it was guaranteed that if you donate to the Jesse Young campaign, you will feel 10 years younger.
Really? Oh, I'm on it. I'm on it. All right. I think the PDC is going to violate you for that. All right. We're going to go to break. When we come back, more of this show. We'll get into some national topics over the next hour. Thanks again for Jesse for coming in. Remember that entire interview segment was brought to you by Paul's Vote for All because they support Jesse Young in the 26th district. Back after this. This is Outlaw.
Are you ready to elevate your spirits? Look no further than Black Rain Spirits, your local craft distillery nestled in Town Square Mall. Indulge in the smooth richness of our handcrafted spirits, meticulously distilled to perfection. Whether you prefer the bold kick of our bourbon or the subtle sophistication of our gin, Black Rain Spirits has something for every palate. Visit us today at Town Square Mall and experience the essence of true craftsmanship. Black Rain Spirits, where passion meets perfection, unconventionally traditional.
Hey, it's K-Dog with the Outlaw Radio Network. We are everywhere. You can follow us on all your favorite social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Vimeo, and more. And if you want to follow me personally, hop on your Twitter and just search for K-Dog the Outlaw. And don't forget our really cool website, outlawradionetwork.com, full of all the cool merch you've been looking for. Outlaw Radio Network. Are you an outlaw yet?
Twitter's X now.
Oh, yeah, Twitter is X now. Whatever. Elon Musk can kiss my giant white Caucasian ass.
Yeah, well,
why didn't you just
I'm
leave
sure.
it as Twitter? I don't understand the desire to move Twitter and call
And
it
he's gotta
X,
put
but
his own
Twitter
mark
has
on it,
actually
man.
become a verb.
So did you ever notice the car line from Tesla, right?
What's
He's got
that?
the Model S,
Mm-hmm.
the Model 3, the Model X, and the
Mhm.
Model Y.
Yeah.
Well, the S is a sport.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know where
what
X and
do you
Y
get when
came
you flip
from.
that 3 around?
It's sexy.
And what's it spell?
Sexy.
What?
Do I have to get out the crayons? Really? S3XY.
Oh.
Am I speaking to
No, it's
myself?
K-Dog.
I said sexy like 3 times.
Yeah. I just as we're on Facebook, and I'll say this again on the full broadcast as well, but just keep in mind that we are always accepting spots, 30-second spots for candidates, regardless of party, regardless of affiliation. We're not asking for money. We will play any spots. If you need a statement from us for your PDC filings, whatever you need, we'll give you a statement that basically says it was for free. I don't know how to assign a dollar value to it, but that's fine. We'll figure something out. I think it's more important for us to play ads and recognition stuff for all candidates. We'll make it as fair and equal as we can. And just give the listeners a chance to hear who you are and what you stand for. Now, in past years, we've had more Republicans do it than not. I don't know why the Dems won't do it. I mean, unless their candidates have nothing constructive to say. But we'll play it in the breaks because I want us to be all inclusive.
No.
I want us to get the word out, Phil.
Now for the PC, just write the word millions in lowercase and then in uppercase.
Millions!
There you go.
Yeah, millions and millions.
Just trying to set you up.
God, that'd be great. Wouldn't that be awesome if we gave like a in-kind donation of like $1 million to Jesse Young's campaign, which was basically us playing his spots all the time. I mean, it's a fabricated number. You know what I mean? Like we're not selling ad packages right now. We will be soon, but we're not right now. So we could assigned whatever value we wanted to.
Oh yeah.
And again, we're not playing crap. Like I'll give Democrats a spot.
Absolutely.
I don't mind. I'll give everybody a spot. I don't care. Unless it was Paul running for office. He doesn't get any spot
We'll even
on the
give
show.
up Sheldon's spot, right? Nobody got that. Oh,
No.
It's rough, tough crowd.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Big Bang Theory? No.
Never watched it.
Sheldon Cooper.
Nerd humor is not my humor.
It's
I mean,
not
I've
nerd
heard
humor,
a lot of
Kevin.
people like it.
Hello.
Nerd humor is not my humor.
Apparently, I'm part of the nerd herd.
I couldn't get into it either. I did try. I couldn't get into it.
The nerd herd. Did you ever watch Chuck?
No.
Oh, Chuck they had the nerd herd and Chuck. Yeah.
I couldn't get into that one either.
Chuck?
Yeah.
How many episodes did you watch?
Nobody could get into
And you
Chuck
didn't get
except
into it?
you, Kevin.
Chuck is a great
That's why it
show.
got canceled.
Probably my second favorite of all time behind Suits.
What do you say? 1-to-1. I'll watch an episode of Chuck. You watch an episode of Big Bang.
Yeah, we've
Well,
tried
I'd have
this
to watch
before.
2 episodes.
Kevin never
of Big Bang, 'cause
follows
Chuck
through.
is an hour long, so I'd have to be fair.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're all 12 seasons.
Maybe. You know what I've started watching with my youngest daughter is Monk, and
Monk's cool.
That's not even I don't tell her I said this, but that show is awful. All right, Outlaw Radio, come
Really?
back out. Full broadcast after this.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright.
I was going to run for office, but then Jesse said he is, so I'm not going to now.
Bunch of a-holes.
What kind of feeling?
Do you know how much fun I have poking fun at Paul? It's like going to the zoo with a really long stick and poking the bear, but knowing that there's like an electrified fence in between you guys. Because he's way over there in the middle of nowhere. And I'm here in the safety of studio.
Just think all the things you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole or an 11-foot Swede.
Oh.
Wow. 11-foot Swede. All right. You're good. That's a good one.
I'm here all night.
Try the veal.
Yeah. I heard a joke this week, and I'm going to share it. Just because it goes with Paul's Bill for All declaring that I'm a ranking member of the Ku Klux Klan.
A grand wizard.
Grand wizard at that. I've never understood racists. I've never understood them. There was a time when I got beat up by a group of skinheads, like the racist skinheads, and I literally spent a week in the hospital, and it was the worst initiation I'd ever been a part of. Anyway. Anyway, that was a joke I heard. It was funny. Since I'm a ranking member of the KKK.
Wow, it's really,
Hi, Paul.
Really grown on me.
Your jokes are not getting better with age, my friend.
Yeah. I got other jokes I just can't tell on the.
It's aging like government cheese.
Aging like government cheese. Hey, let's get into some national stuff really quick, Paul. I do have a story I want to ask you about because I think it's tainted with a whole bunch of political bias and could honestly have a big impact on the election.
In this day and age, hold on. In this day and age, you think something is tinted with political bias?
Yeah, your sarcasm.
That's
your
new.
sarcasm does not elude me.
Right? Yeah.
Tomorrow, Trump has to come up with $454 million or a bond to cover the $454 million. That's the result of the lawsuit that was filed against him. If he doesn't come up with that tomorrow, again, the full amount or a bond, then they can start seizing his stuff. Buildings, houses, cars, plane, helicopter, everything.
So like $454 million worth of his stuff?
$454 million worth of his stuff.
That's a lot of stuff.
There's no guarantee he'll be able to secure a bond tomorrow. He may.
He's claiming he's got the money. As of tonight, he was claiming he had the money. But, I mean, I don't know that I believe half of what that dude says. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. Is that he hasn't really struck me as credible up to this point.
It's a double-edged sword. So to what you just said, Tom, right? He doesn't strike you as credible.
Not with his
now that's-
personal stuff. His
Okay.
personal stuff is seldom credible. He's
Okay. I'm going to agree with you on that. Yeah. He very much likes to brag, and that's unfortunate because it's not very becoming of a leader. Not to the extent with which he does it. I think that this whole case is a lot more significant than people give it credit for, and I think everybody on the left side of the aisle says, "Oh my God, that's it. Trump's going down," right? That's how they look at it. He got what he deserved. That's their thought process, right? The reality is far different and far more destructive, I think, because we have literally seen a perversion of our legal system and watched it get turned into lawfare. If you know, if you catch my drift, instead of warfare, the system itself literally has been perverted. You had a judge discussing the guilt of a defendant in his courtroom before the trial began. You saw a politically a person who ran for political office run on the idea of getting him right and suing him out of office and doing all kinds of bad things to him. Like, there is, from a completely neutral standpoint, there is so much wrong with this whole case. It's hard to even put it into context, right? Everything that could be wrong is wrong with this case. Our justice system is based on a couple of simple premises, right? A, justice is blind, right? And doled out equally. That's number one. Number two, you are innocent until proven guilty, okay? So let's just take those first two concepts, right? He was not innocent until proven guilty. In fact, he was pronounced guilty before the beginning of the trial. So literally, one half of our entire legal system on this case has just been flushed down the toilet. The second part, right, is this idea that justice is blind. Sorry, when you have a political candidate who campaigns on the idea before she had one lick of evidence of anything, right? She had nothing. And she said, I'm going to get him. Elect me and I'm going to get him. Well, now guess what? Now justice isn't blind. Now justice is a political tool. So in my opinion, like everything that could go wrong with our legal system has gone. Trump could be guilty as hell, by the way. I'm not even talking about his guilt or innocence. I'm simply pointing out the incredibly dangerous path that this has set us on. And I just want to point out for every Democrat out there who's listening to this and who is whining and screaming at the top of their lungs about how Hunter Biden wasn't elected and Hunter Biden isn't the president and how there's no evidence and no proof that Joe Biden did anything. Sucks, doesn't it? You're reaping what you sow. And so when I sit here and I tell you this is exactly the worst direction we could have come down, right? Now you've just opened the door to Republicans to come right back at you, baby. And that's what they're doing. Is it bad? Yep, it is just as bad. But what did you expect?
Well, listen, let's take this one step further, right? I actually don't disagree with the guilty verdict on the libel because
I'm not the liable. You're talking about the E.G. and Carroll case. I wasn't talking about that. But if you're going to talk about that, there's a couple of premises that I need to make sure that I know you don't have the time to follow all of this stuff. But on that case, are you aware that the New York State Legislature had to change the laws so that she could file that case? They had to increase the amount of time somebody had to file a case under these pretenses.
Yeah, so and we've seen a push for that nationally on some of these cases as well, where different state legislatures have extended times that people can file claims. I don't know how that can be retroactive. Like that.
Well, they did it. You just saw how.
I know that they did. I don't know how you could. That seems like a violation of the 4th and 14th Amendments. But just generally speaking, right? I don't have an issue with the guilty verdict in and of itself.
In which case?
Because
in which case?
In any of his defamation lawsuits.
Okay, well you realize that in the defamation lawsuit, He was sued for defamation for basically calling her out for the kind of person he feels she was, and she did not prove her case. She claimed he raped her. He defended himself, and that's what she sued him for.
Well, but he did defame her, though. I mean, he talked about her in the media. He said a lot of things that weren't even about her specifically.
After she sued him, hold on. She claimed he raped her, Kevin.
I understand.
Tell me he did not have every single right to. If a woman goes against you, Kevin, and publicly says, Kevin raped me, you can't tell me. You can't look in this camera or me in the face and tell me you'd keep your mouth shut.
No, hold on. So you have to let me finish my sentence before you tell me.
Yes, I do, but I want you to have the right premise. But go ahead.
Sorry. I have the right premise, okay? Because here's what Trump does. When Trump gets mad and he feels attacked, he doesn't just defend himself. He lashes out. And he says inflammatory, evil, hateful, smarmy, jerky things. And so, if you let me finish my point, I don't have an issue so much with the guilty verdict. What I do have an issue on every single one of his claims and every single one of the cases he's lost, not necessarily that he's lost them, right? I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you the validity of any of these legal things he's facing. The judgment amounts are specifically political.
And I think the argument could be made, couldn't it? And you're the constitutional expert, that the judgments against him are unconstitutional.
Yeah, I would tend to lean that way, in the sense that you cannot tell me that any judgment of damages is worth $465 million. Because I know people that are killed in accidental death, and the judgment levied against the person who accidentally killed them is in the hundreds of thousands, or maybe $1 million or $2 million. But all of these judgments that Trump did is worse than somebody being accidentally killed. 400 times more than somebody who was accidentally killed. I don't buy it.
Well, yeah, because again, the law is based on what reasonable people do under reasonable circumstances. Right.
But we're assigning an amount that is so astronomical and was only passed in that amount as a way to politically and economically neuter him.
Yes. Why? Because he's running for president. Yeah,
but that's not the point of justice. The point of justice is to make things whole. The point of justice is to make things correct. So, Paul, what did he do that led to the $465 million judgment?
Again, which you're talking about the $465 million? That would have been the New York State Attorney General Letitia James. Now, listen, it's important, and I know it's important for people to wrap their head around exactly what he was sued for. Okay, he was sued because the New York State Attorney General said he, as in he, Donald Trump, and his Trump organization overinflated the value on their properties in order to get more favorable conditions on loans. In other words, my property is worth $100 million. I need to borrow $20 million, but since it's worth so much, give me a lower loan rate. Now, every person that can go into a bank and ask for a loan has the ability to negotiate that loan to some degree. Everybody does. Now, what is the bank's job in that set of circumstances? The bank's job,
assets.
That is correct, to do their due diligence. And a bank will only loan you based upon their own mathematical formulas, X amount of dollars at X amount of percent. Okay?
Right.
Every bank is required to do their due diligence. No bank will loan money without it. And anybody who's taken a loan is well aware of that. Here's the problem. The problem is that before that trial began, Judge Engeron stated very publicly for the cameras, and I quote, "I've already seen enough to know Donald Trump is guilty." Okay, right off the bat, there's a predisposed notion by the judge who is supposed to be a neutral arbiter in every single case. Okay? Now let's take that a step further. The judge and his wife are huge Democratic Party donors and supporters. And the judge's wife was very vocal about her dislike for Donald Trump. Now we have a conflict of interest. And by the way, for Republicans, that same argument of conflict of interest can be made against Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife, Ginny. So let's not pretend that one is so bad and the other isn't, because they are very similar. So let's get that out of the way real quick as well. So,
and one other facet to add into this, one other piece to add into this is to keep in mind that the banks that gave the loans didn't have a dog in this fight.
They actually testified on behalf of Donald Trump and said that they suffered. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, they weren't complaining.
Correct.
They weren't accusing Trump of anything. And again, I'm not a Trumper, right? I don't like the guy. I think he's a blowhard. I think he does a lot of things. I think he's broken some laws.
Can I, you know what? I love that you just said that. Can I tell you this, Kevin?
Yeah.
What you just said points to exactly what is wrong in this country right now. Do you know why?
Tell me.
Because you felt the need to defend yourself. You felt the need to justify your opinion about Donald Trump.
Yeah, but
simply because you supported him.
Well, but I think it's valid because there are people in this country who will support Donald Trump no matter what he does because they support him.
Yes, but that's always that way in politics with every candidate.
But that's why I'm saying I think it's important to note I'm not a Trumper, dude. I don't like the guy. I would vote for him against Biden because I think Biden is a dumpster fire worse.
I think what I'm trying to say though, Kevin, is that, and again, this isn't an issue for me, but you do this every time you talk about Trump in a light that you think some people won't like. You feel like you have to defend yourself. And it's like you put your resume out there about the things you don't like about Donald Trump before you say it. All I'm saying is that is a condition. We are conditioned to say stuff like that now. Why? Because we don't live in a country where we feel that it's okay to just give our opinion about politics. There is sides on both sides of these issues right now in politics that make it so that, if you say the wrong thing about a wrong Republican candidate, you're a rhino or you're this or you're that, right? You say that you supported Donald Trump on an issue, just an issue. And you feel like you have to defend the fact that, well, I don't really want the guy to be president. I don't really like the guy, right? I mean, we should not ever have to justify how we feel about a political candidate. We should just be able to have a conversation about them. That's what I'm getting at. It's just that points to such a massive problem within our culture and our society right now. That's all.
But here's my issue with all of this, right? The E. Jean Carroll defamation stuff, this ruling, all of that, right?
Yeah.
Where does the $465 million come from? If the banks don't feel they were defrauded,
which they said they didn't,
they said they didn't when they testified for him. Now,
in fact, they said they'd loan him money again.
Well, of course they would. Listen, the banks are smart. You know what I mean? Even if Donald Trump did defraud them, they know that it's better to keep him as a client to lose him. But regardless, the banks have said under oath, we were not damaged by what he did, and we loaned to him again. Okay?
Yep.
So this doesn't involve taxpayer money.
Correct.
So that takes the state out of damages.
Correct.
Now, again, they're going to prosecute criminal. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but there's no damages that have been incurred financially by the state by what Trump did in regards to the bank.
Correct.
And where did the $465 million come up? Trump came out this week and said, well, I have $500 million in my bank account set to go to my campaign. Now, let's pretend he's telling the truth, and I don't know if he is or not, because he's a blowhard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But that would make sense if he had $500 million in the account for his campaign, and they assessed an amount that's like 90% of that amount that he had set aside for his campaign just happens to be, I mean, that doesn't seem funky to anybody, that the number they came up with is almost completely what he says he had set aside for his campaign if he's telling the truth. And I don't know that he is, but let's pretend for a minute that he is. And are you telling me that what Trump did, honestly, if the banks have said there's no flaw, And the banks have said they weren't damaged. And the banks have said they would they would loan him money again. Is his restitution fit to be so high and so much more than somebody who committed vehicular manslaughter and killed somebody? Somebody who robbed a bank, had to go through the penal system, had to go through courts and all of that for dealing hard drugs, and they get court-ordered restitution?
Well, and again, you're a constitutional specialist, right? I'm not even on this. I'm not even going to go so far as to joke around and say you're a scholar.
Scholar, thank you.
Who's the victim in this crime?
Because what I think the state would argue is that the banks are the victim, but they are not going to advocate for themselves because of the long-term potential.
Okay, that's fair. That's what I thought they were going to say, but that is not who they argued for.
Who did they argue the victims were then?
They said that the people of the state of New York are the victims because they get worse interest rates on loans as a result of the actions of Donald Trump and the Trump Foundation.
For Christ's sakes.
Right. So now you take into consideration the next part of this. They are punishing him for values he placed on properties that aren't even in damn New York State. One of the properties they used as an example was Mar-a-Lago, dude.
Yeah.
Now here's part of the listening to a couple of lawyers discuss this. Mar-a-Lago is equally valued, just the property. You tear down the building that's there, right? They say that the property alone, waterfront property, I think it's in Palm Beach or wherever it's at. I don't know the town specifically. They said it's worth probably around $200 to $250 million. That's without the buildings. Okay. So do you know what Judge Engeron and Letitia James said it was worth? You can't make this up, dude. They said it's worth about $18 million. Now, the next part of the argument that was made, and that was the banks who brought this up, right? Here's where part of the problem comes into play. We've talked about this ourselves, about the radio show and other things. Name recognition and branding, right? Uh-oh. Did I lose you guys? Hello?
I'll have it up here in a second.
Hello?
I'll probably have it up before you do.
Well, I can hear Phil talking.
There you go. Okay, dog. We're back.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for going, Paul.
Still there? Okay. Anyways.
Streaming computer.
So the final point was here is actually a huge point. This is what the state of New York refused to recognize. And this is actually a big crux of their case. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you this question very sincerely and just answer it the best you can. Now, if you have a building, a 55-story skyscraper in downtown New York City that the bank sends a person in to evaluate it, and they said, this building is worth $200 million. Now, let me ask you a question. Is that property worth $200 million as it is with no name or anything else on it? Or is it worth more than that if you slap a big sign on the front of it that says Trump Tower?
It's probably worth more. It shouldn't be, but it's probably worth more.
It's branding. It is, right? Yeah. If you were going to have your office in downtown New York City, Kevin, and it's about money and it's about prestige, okay? And if you see $5,000 a month for rent for one office space that's in Trump Tower, okay, or $3,000 a month rent that's in an unknown 10-story building that's buried somewhere downtown Brooklyn, which has more value to you as a business? The one that's in Trump Tower.
Yep.
Because there's more prestige, there's more name recognition that comes with it. And frankly, it looks better for business when you are in Trump Tower versus another no-name building. So these are all things that came into play, right? So the banks are saying, well, the Trump building is worth X amount of dollars to us. And in part, that's because it has his name on it, right? So what the state of New York and Letitia James said, yeah, we're going to ignore that.
Yeah.
And so what it's done, this is why you have people like Kevin Leary from the Shark Tank coming out and saying, you know what, I'm not doing business in New York no more. It's dangerous now. Because if they can do this to him, a victimless crime. The bank said they weren't damaged. The bank said they'll keep loaning to him. The banks are saying he didn't defraud them at all. So the people that the state claimed were victims are saying they weren't victims. I hate to say it like this, dude, but I'm gonna. Yeah, let me draw this one example really quick. It's like a guy and a gal go out on a date, right? And let's say they're 18 years old. 18-year-old goes to this girl's house. He picks her up. Parents say, be back by 10. He's like, okay, no problem. He brings her back at midnight, 2 hours late. She's drunk. And while she's drunk, she admits to her parents they had sex, right? The parents get all pissed off, and the parents say, I'm calling the cops. I'm going to have him prosecuted. He raped my daughter. And the daughter's sitting there saying, yeah, I wasn't raped. I did it willingly, right? That's how ridiculous this case is.
But
you
hold
have
on,
the
but-
supposed... yeah, go ahead.
There's even one thing you're forgetting, though, that I think makes it
Probably,
even
I'm
more
Polish.
ridiculous. Okay?
Go ahead. Yeah.
If I was going to take a loan, and I'm going to use my house as collateral for that loan, now they're accusing Trump of lying about the value of his assets.
Yeah.
Whose job is it to verify the value of an asset before they make a loan?
Correct.
Are you
Correct. The
telling
bank.
me that the bank
100%.
would not
Yep.
come to my house, inspect it, do a walk around, do their due diligence, look at everything, and then they would make a decision on what the value is of the asset that I'm using? So
Yeah.
if it's all of these Trump businesses, Mar-a-Lago, any of that, are you trying to tell me the Bank of America did not have an obligation and an expectation, if they were treating Trump like everybody else gets treated, to send an appraiser out to whatever the assets are, do a walk around, kick the tires, and then make a determination what the asset is worth? And how can Trump inflate his asset value when there's an expectation of the financial institution to do the research for their underwriting?
Yes.
And
for
that's
sure.
what I don't understand. I can say as much as I want to, the house that I live in Port Orchard is a $1.5 million home. That's my value. That I can sell it for whatever I want to. And if I'm going to sell it, to me, it has a value of $1.5 million. And you've been in my house. It's not a $1.5
Oh my
million
God.
home.
We
You
need to
understand
write a
my point?
letter to Donald Trump, Kevin, because I literally just had an epiphany, and I know exactly how he needs to go back and defend that whole case. All he has to do is say his building's identified as being worth more.
But hold on. But you're being a smartass. But here's my point. When
kinda
you're
serious.
selling something that you own, you can assign whatever value you want to it.
Yes, because value is where?
Value is
the
relative.
value. Yes.
And the bank has an obligation to their board members and their shareholders and their customers to do due diligence to verify the perceived value of that asset when they're underwriting the claim. And if they took Donald Trump's inflated numbers and ran with it and didn't verify it, that's not on Trump. That's on the bank. Phil, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, the bottom line, the gold standard for what something's worth is what somebody will pay for it, right? The secondary is the comparables. When you're doing a property assessment appraisal, you get comparables. Beyond that, yeah. I mean, if the bank takes it, they take it.
If the bank takes it, they take it. And if I set an amount that does not meet what the market will pay for it, guess what's going to happen?
The market will tell you no.
The market will tell me no, and I will not sell the house.
And-
but it doesn't mean, can the state of New York, if we lived in upstate New York, maybe outside of Niagara Falls, we had a nice little view of a lake or something, we can go out and fish off the dock, and Paul could pet his koi fish all the time, and it'd be great, right? But if I list my property, which is on Zillow for $365,000, and I list it on a realtor listing site, I want to sell this home for $1.5 million. Is New York going to come try to prosecute me for inflating the value of my real estate?
Yes.
But why?
Now they will, because they've set that precedent.
But they won't, because Trump was the monkey.
Right, they won't.
Man.
That's correct,
Trump
Kevin.
was
They
the
won't.
monkey. Trump was the target, Phil.
It wasn't also there evidence now that the bank made a risk that was appropriate because they successfully got paid back? Did they not make the was it not too risky?
Well, and that's Phil. You have a really good point.
I mean, isn't that the point of all this?
Yeah, Phil, you made a really good point, and Paul hasn't touched on it either. So let me just synopsize that. All the loans that are in question have already been paid back. Mm-hmm. So the bank made a risk, which any bank does when they give a loan, to Trump, and Trump fully paid everything back. So how does that resort in the people of New York having to pay higher interest rates? I would argue that if he had defaulted on the loans, then maybe that might be true. Because if you default on a really large loan, the bank is going to adjust interest rates or loan parameters because they've got to make up their bottom line. But he paid all the loans back. So that means the bank didn't make a bad loan. They made a calculated risk that paid off in their advantage, which explains why they would loan to him again. And it wasn't Trump's responsibility to verify his assets because he's biased. Anyone who owns anything is biased because of the emotional attachment that they have in their asset. So it wasn't Trump's requirement to verify it. It was the banks. And if they didn't do it and that upsets their loan rates for the people of New York, we're probably suing the wrong people. Not that we should be able to trust the banks to do anything right because they're banks and they don't care. But it just seems, if I want to sell my Jeep, because I love my Jeep. You guys know me. I love that Jeep. I have never loved a vehicle as much as I love my Jeep. And if somebody came to me right now and said, the amount you owe on your loan is $30,000. Okay, I'm using round numbers. And the amount that Kelley Blue Book says it's worth is $27,000. I'm just making up round numbers. I don't even know what the numbers are. How much would you sell it for? I love this Jeep. I bought it right after my dad died. I have a lot of emotional attachment to it. I wouldn't sell it for a dime under 60. Okay, I'll buy it for 60. Am I going to get sued by the state because I sold an asset for more than it was worth because I valued it more because of whatever emotional attachment I have to it or whatever
that would be gouging. It's
whatever. What's that, Paul?
That would be gouging. Is what the argument would be. I'm just telling you what the argument would be.
If I argue $60,000 and the dude's willing to pay it,
if both parties are in
parties are in agreement,
you're right. But both parties were in agreement with those loan conditions too.
Yeah, those
didn't matter.
That's my point, Phil.
Yep.
I was going to ask too. Now, isn't there a point like if you want to insure it, like for damages, you have something happen to your vehicle? I feel it's worth this much. You can certainly have riders to deal with that kind of stuff.
But if I went to Farmers Insurance, which is in Bremerton, which is who I do all my insurance stuff with, Farmers Insurance, Hercules is my agent's name, by the way. Love Herc.
Mine too.
Hercules.
Or if you've known him a while, Little Herc.
If I go to Herc and I say, look, dude, I got this vehicle, I want to insure it for $65,000. Kevin, the blue book on your vehicle is only $27,000. So why is there a difference? Why are you going for a larger number? Well, because I put a brand new stereo in it. I got new tires. I put under skid plates. I blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, we're going to need to appraise that.
Yeah.
And then even for a stupid thing like a car, they would have to see it and appraise it to make an exception to what's normal. It's why none of this thing with Trump any of these judgments make sense to me. Because in regard to the assets, somebody should have verified the cost of the assets as part of the loan on the bank's behalf, because that's due diligence. And in the E. Jean Carroll stuff, how did they come up with the massive number to the damage to her credibility? Anybody who thought that she was credible still thinks she's credible, and anybody who thought that she was full of horse crap still thinks she's full of horse crap. Nobody's opinion changed. Like,
no, and let's not forget,
gross, man.
Well, and let's not forget, Kevin, that this is a woman who, when she won that judgment, went on MSNBC and started bragging about how she was going to take Rachel Maddow and the other hosts on the network shopping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, made a complete mockery of all of it.
I don't agree with that.
Well, listen, when you win a judgment like that and you go through something like that whole system, and you start talking about how you're going shopping and you're buying all these people gifts, you've made a mockery of the whole process. In my opinion, that's what she did. She made a mockery of it. So
maybe let me give the converse. If I had been screaming about an atrocity that I believed was perpetuated upon me, and people called me a liar, and people talked bad about me in public, and they defamed me, and they made me a meme and a GIF, and Glenn Beck hears my cause and says, or some journalist hears my cause and says, Brandy Cruz hears my cause and says, this isn't right. And they elevate it on their platform, and because of that, I get to a resolution because they believed in me. You're damn straight I'm going to remember them when they bucked against a trend. So I don't have an issue with her doing that, because there is malfeasance all over the place that conventional media ignores. And if I was hoping that somebody in media, Rachel Maddow, whomever, hell, if I sued the state of Washington for the crap that's gone on with my daughter, and Brandy Cruz picked it up and ran with it, and because of that, I won a massive lawsuit from the state, you're damn straight I would remember Brandy Cruz when that happened. I would take her and her new husband to Oahu. I would buy copious amounts of advertising. I would do something if I won some massive lawsuit, because Brandy had my back when nobody else did. So I don't have an issue with it. I think it's totally fine. I mean, it looks dirty and smarmy, and Rachel Maddow appears to me to be a less than wonderful person. But if she really was raped, and Rachel Maddow really did back her and help push that agenda, of course she's going to remember her. I don't have an issue with it. Across the board. Unless you're Joe Biden. Then I have an issue with it. Because he doesn't remember how to spell his name.
Well, alrighty then.
All right. Have we beat that to death yet? Or are we good
it's
there?
actually getting kind of rotted, but
all right. Hey, another thing I want to ask you about, Paul, and I was surprised about this when it happened, and then I was even more surprised when I found out who did it. A major terror attack in a section outside of Moscow left a whole bunch of people dead.
143.
Yeah, and a whole bunch more people injured. Right now, as of now, 137 is the death count.
Last I read was 143.
Well, this is from CNN, so they're probably a week and a half behind schedule. And hundreds injured. But then when I found out it was ISIS-K behind it, Paul, maybe you understand this better than I do. Why is ISIS, of all the targets that I thought that ISIS and Islamic states would be going after, Russia's not on my top 10.
Afghanistan and Russia have history.
Yeah.
Yes, but they've been out of Afghanistan for a long ass time.
Long time. It doesn't mean
and
they
I'm
still
thinking
don't have history.
But I'm thinking if ISIS wants to pull off an attack like that, that attack could be very easily pulled off on American soil. I mean, that was 5 dudes with semi-automatic weapons and explosives.
Yeah, who says it's not going to happen?
No, it might. But
Yeah. I mean, wide open borders.
I guess my question is why was it Russia? I mean, is there something I'm missing in the geopolitical sphere that makes me think that ISIS has it out harder for Russia than they do for Western Europe or the United States right now? Or what am I not understanding?
Christians are Christians in
But they're not Christians in Russia.
Beg to differ.
They're Bolsheviks.
They're Eastern Orthodox. But
well, yeah, but Paul, do you have an answer? Because I just
because
I try
Russia
to wrap
helped
my hand around stuff. Go ahead.
Russia helped fight against the Islamic State in Syria. There's a grudge there. Do you remember the circumstances where the United States and the Wagner group actually got into a small scuffle in Syria? It was because both of them were working, and it was supposed to be together to eradicate the Islamic State. So yeah, there's some pissed off, hurt feelings there. And if you're the Islamic State, who's an easier target? Right?
Right now, we are.
I just
mosey through Mexico.
I'm not advocating though, Paul, but that attack they carried out in Moscow,
yeah,
that could have been done anywhere here in the States.
How do you know it won't be? To Tom's point, our borders are wide open.
Well, but even listen, I don't want to make this about the borders, because even if the borders were tight, it was 5 dudes. You know what I mean? It was 5 dudes with automatic weapons, which you can easily take a semi-automatic and make it an automatic. So that isn't an act of rocket science,
right?
And explosives, which you can get. And I just, we are so hated right now because of and I'm not saying we shouldn't back Israel. That's not my point. We are so hated by every Islamic group in the world. I'm just surprised that it was Russia and not us, or Russia and not Great Britain, or Russia and not Germany, or Russia and not France. And my brain is trying to understand it.
Okay. I get, like, you're shocked and you're surprised. Okay, that's fair, right? That's totally fair. But there is a reason that they would attack Russia. Russia was an enemy during the fight for the Islamic State in Iraq and in Syria. Remember, the Islamic State was trying to take over Syria. Russia backed Bashar al-Assad and his regime. So, enemy and my enemy is my friend and all of that good stuff. Russia fought with us to eliminate the Islamic State. Sort of, they worked with us. I don't even want to really say they worked with us. It was really more by default.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing.
Right. Yep. So, there's that part of it. And you have targets of opportunity. Where's Russia's attention right now? It's in Ukraine. Okay. Islamic State wants to send a message to the world. Hey, we're making a comeback, which has been in the news for the last 6 months. Right? Especially since the Israel stuff kicked off, that the Islamic State has been making a comeback. So that's going on. Now we have to look at the fact that as the Islamic State is slowly growing in strength again, right? That's something that ultimately, eventually, in some way, shape, or form is going to have to be dealt with again. But I know that you don't want to conflate it with our border, but 77 people who were on the terrorist watch list last year alone got caught trying to cross the border illegally. How many do you think weren't on the terrorist watch list but still have bad intentions? There could be 100 or more Islamic State members in this country right now preparing for an attack. Okay. Here's the other part of this situation that went on with Russia. 2 weeks ago, the CIA warned Vladimir Putin and Russia of an imminent terrorist attack. They warned them.
Well, did you hear what Putin came out and said today?
Yeah, yes, he's blaming Ukraine.
Well, no.
And
they came out today.
Yes, he did. He's blaming Ukraine.
He did blame Ukraine, but he also came out. Here's his quote. We did not receive any notifications or messages in advance. That's from Anatoly Anatov, the Russian ambassador to the United States. They're basically denying, Russia is. Now, again, this is Russia. But they're basically denying that the Americans gave any advanced warning, any advanced notice, because we had intelligence earlier in the month that said something was coming, and they publicly told all Americans to avoid large gatherings. So I don't really know how Russia can say that they didn't get anything, because it wasn't like the U.S. was being quiet about it.
It's posturing for their own people.
Yep. We're a victim of the West.
And Zelensky is claiming that Russia's own FSB was behind the attack. I don't believe that either. So it's a mess now, dude. It's a mess. And any side that wants to use it as a pretext is going to be free to use it as a pretext. It's the ultimate false flag attack.
Did you hear the latest involving Hamas?
No, what's Hamas up to?
So Hamas came out and condemned the attacks in Moscow because Hamas is trying to garner favor with Russia.
Oh, great. Listen, I saw another article today. Too, of a whole bunch of LGBTQ folks holding signs that say Allah loves everyone in front of a rainbow flag. Like, Is someone going to tell them? Allah might love everybody, but Allah doesn't love you if you love somebody of the same gender, and you're allowed to be stoned to death, Phil.
Can we just get them a one-way ticket and they can go find out?
Yeah.
That's happened. There's been instances of people going to the Middle East thinking, "Oh, I'm going to go embrace."
Oh, those British teenage girls.
Yeah.
That fell in love with Mujahideen or whatever fighters or whatever, and they go to Afghanistan to become their brides, and they get there and they realize, "Holy crap, we are so screwed."
Yep.
Yeah. And there was an American one that went over there, and the Americans wouldn't let her come back. You went over there to wage war against American soldiers. We think we're going to let you come back? You're out of your damn mind. Good Lord. Paul, do you think that what happened has any impact on what's going on in Ukraine?
No. Well, no, in the sense that no, there's no real effectual difference that's going to be made. However, from a propaganda standpoint, on behalf of Vladimir Putin, if he floats the message to the people of Russia that Ukraine was behind this, which is his claim right now, that galvanizes his people, right? Just like it would in any country. If your leadership comes out after this massive terrorist attack, which is why Ukraine is claiming that Russia's secret police were behind it, which we all know, by the way, that Putin did back in the late 90s when he took control in order to galvanize support behind him when he blew up the apartment complex. So these are all very real things. These are strategies and tactics that are used. We look at the Russians and we think they're stupid. It's not that the Russian people are stupid. They have a very different value system than we do here. And they trust different people in different ways. And you're talking about a culture and a people that perceive the world in a very, very different way. Yeah. Very different way. Why has Ukraine been holding up so well against the Russian onslaught? Because for the last 8 years, Americans and European soldiers have been in Ukraine training Ukrainian soldiers about the way of the West. Western militaries, that is, right? They've been teaching them about the sanctity and the value of human life and what it's about and what it's for and why it's precious. So these are all things that have all in their own way made little differences, and those differences have added up to a Ukrainian people that are fighting a very different war today than they would have had they been still under Soviet control. So all of these things, and listen, these are things that we've been talking about for years, Kevin. These are the very reasons why, I very openly talk about how I championed the values and the things that made this country great, because they're good and they're righteous and they're true. If somebody comes to me and says I'm LGBTQ and I'm woke and I'm this and this and that, and you, St. Paul, are a bigoted, racist, white, fascist, neo-Nazi, yada, yada, yada. Like, whatever, dude. I don't care what you think, because you know what? I'm going to support your right to say whatever you want. You're entitled to your opinion, but God help us as a country if a bunch of Gen Zs, or now I guess this new one's called Alpha Generation. Just read that the other day.
They're still youngsters. The oldest of those are like 13.
Well, I want to say one thing, though, Paul. I disagree with you on one front. I think this makes things in Ukraine get worse. I have believed for a while that Russia is looking for an excuse to ratchet up the military involvement even more.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Impacting civilians especially, and the risk of a low-yield nuke. And Putin drawing the blame on this attack to Ukraine could serve, if he chooses to go that way, as justification for him to do something dramatic and drastic in Ukraine.
Well, I won't discount that. Yeah, you're absolutely
Ukrainian
right, man.
militants that were behind it. And now he says, look, now they're killing innocents in our home country. What is that? What are you doing, Paul?
Nothing. Keep talking.
Oh.
We can hear you, Paul.
We can hear you, Paul, feeding your dogs. It could allow him to really ratchet something up against the civilian population or use a low-yield nuke. And we were worried before this that Putin might consider a nuke, because Putin's not winning. Ukraine just had a really successful attack in the last 48 hours in part of Crimea. They struck out two Russian military vessels. I mean, at some point, if Putin wanted to, look, now they're killing civilians in shopping centers. We have to strike harder.
They've damaged
for sure.
I think I was reading something like 30 or 40% of the Black Sea Fleet with their Sea Baby drones.
Yeah, look,
they don't have a navy. Everything is UAV.
And I love that that Russia's such a bunch of hypocrites.
Well, I guess UWV.
Russia's full of hypocrites. They killed some innocent civilians on our side of the border. They're awful people. Yeah, you've killed how many hundreds of thousands of theirs? You violated their territorial sovereignty? And they sent drones into Moscow and you're pissed? You've been blitzing their capital and their major cities for over 2 years now?
Absolutely.
Holy hell. Hypocrites. Wine. God. Anyway. All right.
100% correct. I do not disagree with anything you're saying. And God help us if things escalate as a result of this stuff.
One last thing I want to bring up really quick. Did you hear what the NCAA did?
Are you talking about with Leah Thomas and her swimming awards and stuff?
Yep. Yeah.
I'll let you tell the story. Go ahead.
Well, they basically stripped Leah Thomas of all the swimming awards and awarded them to Riley Gaines.
Mm-hmm. I read that.
They finally decided, correctly, I believe, in my opinion, that you cannot reward a man for competing against a woman in women's sports, regardless of how that man claims to identify. Because, and again, I don't have an issue with Leah Thomas, whatever their name is. Leah Thompson was the actress in Back to the Future. Leah Thomas.
And Red Dawn.
Yeah. If Leah Thomas wants to portray themselves or identify as a woman, more power to them. I don't care. I really don't care. But you cannot take somebody that has the musculoskeletal system of a man, the strength and endurance of a man, and can have them compete against women and expect that a woman can compete at that level because they can't. Look at the records across the board. What's the world's record for men in freestyle swimming? What's it for women? Oh, look, the men are always faster on the records. Not that there aren't women that could beat men. There certainly are. Riley Gaines could probably beat me in a swimming match. Maybe.
The Venn diagram is,
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
But finally, the NCAA made a decision that I think is fair, which is, look, if you have a male skeletal system, the male musculature, you should compete against men. And if you're a woman and you have the female structure, which, by the way, Leah Thomas had one massive advantage over every woman swimmer. Leah had no boobs. Which is
no drag,
no drag and a large amount of fatty deposits right on their breasts, which slows them down and is extra weight.
It's extra buoyancy too. Though.
Yeah, but that's what I'm
pushes you to the top.
But buoyancy also slows you down.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so to ignore all of that is just dumb. And by the way, to the feminists out there that are like, no, we should let them compete. No, you shouldn't. Are you really trying to make women unimportant? Because I thought the goal was to make women equal. I thought the goal was to give women their space. I thought the goal was to treat women fairly. I thought the goal was to give women every opportunity, not to make them compete with men again. Phil?
Oh, I was going to say, and they need to keep the Frankenbeans out of the women's locker room too. What Riley Gaines shared on that topic was like, really? I'm surprised somebody's dad didn't go to jail over this.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I believe that Riley Gaines and the other swimmers could have done more. I think they should have done more. I think they should have said, we're not going to compete.
Yeah, they should just strike. Like,
they should have. What? Because if they all did,
you can win them all.
Because if they all did,
no one else.
If they all did, the USOC or the NCAA or whatever, they'd have been like, crap. We have 10, 11, or 12 maybe trans athletes that are competing. And now we've lost hundreds of competitors to this, and they're not going to show up and compete. And we have meets that we're paying tens of thousands of dollars to set up, and we're only going to have a few people show up for it because all of our regular athletes are striking. Lori, you don't agree with me. Go ahead.
I don't agree because they were threatened.
Threatened with what?
Their scholarships.
Outside-
They were finishing up school. They were told that if you don't compete and you don't comply, the rest of your semester's not paid, and whatever other
I'm
college you
so
have.
sorry. Suck it up, Buttercup. In the 60s, African Americans protested and got hosed by fire hoses, having their skin ripped off their bodies because they were standing up for what was right. And we got college students that are like, well, I don't want to do what's right because they might mess with my scholarship. Shut up.
People now don't have the fortitude people
I
had.
would agree.
Yeah, we have a generations of spineless people.
All right, we're gonna go to the Facebook side only here in just a second. We'll wrap this up. I'm gonna opine a sec. We'll check your comments and chats, and we'll be back after this. It's Outlaw Radio. Outlaw Radio. Sorry, we had to leave our millions and millions of AM radio listeners left aside for the rest of this conversation. I'm serious. They all should have struck. And that is women athletes across the board. Soccer, softball, swimming, tennis, underwater basket weaving, circle jerk, cluster fucking, whatever. They all should have struck and said, no, we're not going to stand for it. Because if you had done that, the NCAA would have gone a week and said, we have to fix something. Because we can't have...
But that level of organization is not there amongst all those athletes in that short a period of time.
And they're all competitors against each other.
Right. And I mean, it just speaking as someone who has been a collegiate competitor, the last thing I want to do...
Well, you were fencing, but...
Whoa.
I'm just kidding. But hold on, but listen, I like Riley Gaines, and I think she's great and all of that. But how stupid is it to be Riley Gaines and be like, I'm a victim, and I have to compete against a man, and he's beating me, and I don't get my medals, but I'm not really going to do anything besides whine to the media about it, and I'm not going to take a stand, and I'm not going to jeopardize my scholarship. I don't want to do that. Again, African Americans in the 60s were being fire hosed and attacked by dogs.
Different time.
Different time, but irrelevant. Because this snowflake generation doesn't want to take a risk and risk their fucking scholarship?
Scholarships are hard to get.
Sue the NCAA then, and you'll get all your money back, and you can go back and get your goddamn scholarship. But we're upset and we're going to whine, but we're not going to do anything because we don't want to lose anything. God, man. The women in the 20s would be pissed at you. African Americans in the 60s would just be flabbergasted because they took to the bridge, man. And you guys are like, I want you picked on. I want you doing it, a man. God, risk something, you baby, Phil.
I'm just double checking. You watched interviews with Riley and
yes,
interviews. I never caught a whiny vibe about it.
The reason I think it's whiny is because all that she's doing is lip service to the media.
And I mean, like one of her interviews, she talked about like she was actually tied with Thomas.
Yeah.
And they're like,
she was. She
and
tied
the winner
him,
goes to not the girl.
Yeah.
Yes,
again,
that's exactly right, Phil. 100%, Phil.
Right. No, I don't disagree with that. And again, I side with Riley Gaines on all the arguments.
Like, putting that stiff upper lip
Stiff
kind of
upper
thing.
lip,
Like, let's just work through this. We'll get through it.
But here's my problem with that, Phil. Riley Gaines doesn't have time to just work through it. Her number of years with college eligibility is fixed. In most cases, you get 4 years. Sometimes you get a redshirt year. Some people get another redshirt year. There was one guy in college that is playing his 8th year of college football this year. Don't ask me how that happens. But as a general rule, athletes have a fixated amount of time in which they're allowed to compete.
Which is why you can't give up your season.
No, it's why you give up your season. It's why you do the right thing. It's why you make a sacrifice. This generation does not want to do anything that makes them uncomfortable.
I agree with that, but I also I I understand the plight of those college athletes.
I don't.
Because
if they had rallied together and stood fast, and I bet you some men's teams would have backed them. If they would have rallied together and steadfast and said, you know what, this is bunk, and we're not going to do it.
Yeah, but
we're not going to compete against men, and until this is fixed, and if you want to take away our scholarships, we'll sue you.
As a college athlete in a very short period of time, how do you organize that? You don't.
I think if one team did it, I think if Riley, where was Riley Gaines out of? Oklahoma, Idaho, Iowa, whatever.
Yeah,
if her college team, if they had talked together and said, we're out and we're encouraging other programs to do this until this issue's fixed, I guarantee you that would have spread. Maybe not to every NCAA school, but let's say she goes to Iowa. I don't know. What? Oh, Kentucky. Oh, where you marry your cousin on a Tuesday.
Hey.
So Kentucky Ducks.
Be nice to make
Kentucky Ducks out.
They're getting more liberal there.
Hold on. Kentucky Ducks out. Then what happens? Maybe SMU. Maybe Mississippi. Maybe Virginia. Maybe Ohio State. And it spreads. And that's what had to happen. Riley Gaines was in the prime position to be a national spokesperson for what was going on. And her idea of national spokespersoning was to basically say, and again, maybe she didn't have wine in the voice when you heard it, but essentially, we're a victim. Someone needs to do something, but I'm going to keep competing. I mean, that's exactly what it was. And if nobody risks anything, nothing ever changes.
Oh, agreed.
You know? And so they needed to take a bigger stand.
I also agreed. But shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah. I mean, the other part of it is I don't know that she knew until she was in the locker room.
But this Riley, but again,
right before the event, I get what you're saying.
But this Riley Gaines thing went on for months after that. It kept going and going and going and going
because people were upset.
Yes.
They were pissed, and not only that, but she had a split second to make a decision: do I compete or do I try to make this a national platform when I've got the NCAA telling me you will do this?
Rosa Parks went to jail for where she sat on a bus. And they don't want to risk their scholarship.
I get it.
It's abysmal. This generation is a bunch of bitches.
It's a different time. I mean,
we don't want to do anything to make ourselves uncomfortable.
Unfortunate choice of words there. But
well, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Remember what we learned from Lauren Culp was that even men can be bitches.
And why didn't the men
Paul's Bowl for All sponsors this segment?
And why didn't the men's swimming teams maybe rally as well?
Well, and that's a great question, right? Like I would have liked to have seen that as well. But I believe that had Kentucky started first by Riley Gaines' leadership, and they had a conversation, they said, look, we need to take a stand. And we have to hope that other people follow us.
Or the fans could have also took a stand by not taking the stands.
Yeah, I don't believe that the Lemming. You can ask the Lemmings to do anything.
I don't think people knew until they were in the starting blocks. To be totally
yeah, I mean,
honest.
they were saying they didn't know this was happening until they're like in the locker room, like, hello, Frankie Beans, what's going on here?
I don't know.
Right.
And just a competitor will always choose to compete.
Yeah.
You know, if you put them on the spot in the moment, you know that hindsight's 20/20. On the spot in the moment, they will choose to compete.
Yeah. Because they've worked all this time for it.
Yes.
And not only that, but she won. I mean, if you think about it, Leah Thomas is a male.
Yeah.
And Riley Gaines competed and drew the same time.
Yeah.
So it was a dead heat. So that means she won.
But it's irrelevant because what is more important? What do they tell us is the value of college athletics? You're learning things. You're developing as a person, your leadership, your ability, who you are as an adult. So are you worried about your 4 years and your medals that are not going to get you a burger at McDonald's? Or are you worried about your legacy and what you leave behind and what you do for future generations? What is more important?
You're worried about your legacy as a competitor.
As a competitor in what? As a competitor in swimming, or as a competitor in making sure that you fixed a broken system for the next group of female swimmers that come in behind you?
Yeah, that's a personal. I mean,
no, I know.
You know,
and it's easy for me to say this because I'm an educated Native American man. I'm not an athlete. I've never been put in that spot. I totally get it. I'm really sexy in a Speedo, but it's I mean, it's really easy for me to have this stand on this side of the aisle, right? That's what Holly would say if she checked in, whatever. And she's not wrong, right? It's very easy for me to have this, but I would hope that when confronted with injustice, I would hope that if directly confronted with that I would do something to stand up against it. Now, Holly would say, but what about this? What about this? What about this? What about that? I'm not directly confronted with any of that. I mean, in this state, I am essentially a white dude, and I got a lot of privilege. Now, Paul hates that, but my life is great because I'm white. There's a lot of advantages that I know that I receive because I'm white.
See, you're white when it's convenient, and you're native. It's like, that's why I give you grief.
Well, no,
about
because
that,
I
dude.
look like I'm white. If anybody looked at me, nobody's going to say Kevin's Native American. He looks like he's white. And so there's advantages that I get from that living in this society. So I'm not confronted with a lot of stuff. But I'll tell you right now, if I knew something, if something popped up in my community that I needed to go be a part of, that I believed in, I'd go do it. So there you go. Paul hates when I bring up the privilege argument.
No, I just think I think it's
your privilege.
I've made my point on it before. I don't need to again. I think it's a weak argument for people that can't come up with legitimate conversations. I mean, is there something to be said about the luck of who you're born and where you're born? Yes, for every single human being on earth in one way or another. Because you know what? If you're going to tell me, well, I was born in Memphis, right? And I'm a black man, right? They're like, so I was disadvantaged for all of these reasons. I'll be like, well, you could have been born in the Congo.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You could have been born in a much shittier place, couldn't you have? So is that your black privilege? You know, it's a circular argument all the time. That's all it ever is. It's a it's like if somebody's arguing God, right? And somebody says, well, I have faith and I believe. Okay, can't argue your belief. So it's just a complete circular argument. So to me, there's no point in even having the conversation anymore about it. So I mean, other people do, and that's fine.
Yeah, and is there any white privilege in being born a white baby to a crack addicted mom when you're going through infant withdrawal symptoms?
Right?
And you're living in poverty and you're not adequately taken care of. I wouldn't
and
say
it's
that
an insulting argument. Can we add that? Yeah, you're right, Kevin. I'm saying it's something that somebody will say to you as a way of insulting you without openly insulting you. You know, it's like, well, you did that because of the color of your skin and it's your white privilege, you know, and yet they don't know anything about your past. Like you said, you know, they could have been born to a crack addicted mom, not had a father in their life, and had all kinds of disadvantages. So it's the epitome of racism in America today. You're painting a broad group of people with a broad paintbrush, and it shouldn't be acceptable to anybody on any form. Look, I get that people are going to use it. I get it. My opinion of it is set in stone at this point. And, you know, there's a million ways to present that argument to make it seem like it's thoughtful and it's caring. But ultimately, it comes down to an issue about race, doesn't it? Yep. Ultimately, it's race. And what is a race-based argument? Racist.
Racism. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not wrong, dude. Okay. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap tonight? You guys keep in mind, I will not be here Wednesday. Wednesday's my Wednesday off.
Yeah. I'll be in studio Wednesday.
I got to prep for, I got to go prep for Easter service.
Yep. Do you get to stand on the stage and talk on Easter Sunday?
No, I'm singing though.
You're singing. Well, good for you, man. Have a good
You going to
time.
come to church? You want to come to church with me, Paul?
You're going to ask a man who's ordained as a Knights Templar to come to church.
Yeah, I'm going to ask
Easter,
you, and you have every right to say no.
No, it's not that I would say no. I find it fascinating.
Okay, well, I'm just making the invite, my friend.
It's just, you know,
if you want to burn in hell, more power to you. All right.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
All right. Anybody else have anything they want to touch on before we wrap this?
I'm gonna take my kids to find Easter eggs, which has nothing to do with the holiday.
It doesn't.
Well, it has to do with the pagan holiday.
The pagan holiday, yes, that's correct.
Well,
Tom, yep.
listen, the pagan god, coincidentally named Easter.
Easterus Bunnius.
Yeah,
I'm still looking for that rabbit that lays eggs. I don't know, man. It's just
what's really funny is
He's called the Cadbury rabbit.
The symbols of the pagan god Easter were the bunny and the egg. I mean,
there's a lot of overlap.
There was not a lot of creativity when the church stole that from the pagans.
Well, but listen, there's a lot of overlap between Christian holidays and traditions and pagan holidays and traditions. Like
the pagans
Jesus,
were first.
No, but I don't even know the answer to that, so I'm not going to get into that.
Well,
but
chronologically, I'm right.
Again, I don't know if you are, because theoretically, if Christianity is correct, then Adam and Eve were first, and they were the first Christians. So,
first Christians were first, like post Jesus era.
Well, first, whatever. You understand my point. You get my point.
Oh, I understand how you're wrong, but yeah.
But my point is, there's a lot of overlap. Jesus,
I know how Tom's wrong too, but
according to scholars, Jesus was not born in December.
No, he was not.
And Christmas is aligned very closely with the equinox, whatever that is in December.
Yule.
Well, Yule and the equinox and all that other stuff.
Yule is the celebration of the equinox in the pagan religion.
There's a lot of overlap, and it works that way because it was stuff that was already being. It was basically pagan celebrations that then the ruling party at the time said, well, we're not going to have pagan celebrations on these dates anymore. We're going to make them fit Christian values.
We're going to appropriate them.
But it doesn't mean the dates really work. I mean, Jesus probably was not.
He was born in the spring.
Jesus was probably not crucified on the first Sunday of April every year, except for the last Sunday of March in weird years.
It did coincide with the Passover, so it does line up on the Jewish calendar.
Does it?
That's why the like today was Palm Sunday.
But does Palm Sunday still line up with the actual Palm Sunday in the Jewish calendar?
Yeah, that's why it keeps moving around.
Okay, but I'm just saying,
why we're having Easter while there's still frost on the ground,
right? But I'm just saying that the birth of Jesus didn't really happen in December.
No. Yeah, which has nothing to do with Easter.
No. Let me finish. Listen, let me finish my point.
He's just talking about inconsistencies.
I'm just talking about inconsistencies about how things have gotten moved around. So I wasn't sure if Easter had also gotten moved around or if it still fit within that.
It follows the Jewish calendar.
Okay,
with where Passover lies. That's why the whole. What do you call it? Palm Sunday. They were, people were lining up. Okay, pick your lamb, get your lamb here, and hello, Lamb of God.
Right.
Guess they picked wrong. But
let me ask you a question on a faith-based thing before we wrap tonight's show. Do you believe that Easter or Christmas is more instrumental in faith, in the Christian faith?
I think from the overall marketing.
No, not marketing. In like, just if you're a Christian, what is the more important of the two? Because I would argue it's Easter, because Easter is the culmination, the conclusion of 33 years of Christ on earth, and the final actions of the
frontier,
of the promise,
completion of a lot of prophecies.
Yeah,
and whatnot, yeah.
I would argue it's Easter, even though Christmas is more.
I could go along with that. I think someone's faith. I mean, that's just a piece of it. There's a lot more to it, but there's kind of does tie it all together.
Yeah,
kind of.
Paul, do you celebrate Easter as a Templar, or I don't want to misidentify your? I mean, is this something
you're not misidentifying anything? No, it just Jesus was the Son of God, the same way that we're all the Son of God. We don't recognize his divinity as anything more than a prophet per se, but. No, and our dogma speaks very clearly that Jesus didn't die on the cross, so not so much.
Okay. Okay. No, I don't. I'm not. I think everybody has their.
They're good conversations, and they're all fascinating in their own right. And I think that there's different reasons why people believe different interpretations. I know that for us, we teach that people having their own interpretation or having their own knowledge or following their own faith is the most important thing. It doesn't matter whether they agree with me or don't agree with me, or what we share in common in our beliefs or not. The most important thing is that you have faith. So, it's some people will argue till they're blue in the face over it. Others won't.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and listen, and you have your beliefs. I have mine. Phil has his. Lori believes that anal beads are a really important part of a successful relationship.
She really doesn't.
And Tom believes in what was it that you called it? I think you called it alcohol ass catheters. Is that what you called it? Is that where you basically take an IV bag full of alcohol and insert it into your rectum? That's what you're talking about?
Unfortunately,
well, when he was done, they certainly were rectum.
It's called boofing.
Is that called boofing?
Yeah,
Okay.
Tom's not into boofing. Thank you.
That's what I heard.
Wow, way too much information tonight.
All right, before we wrap up the show, let's just check the chat. Just make sure there's no comments that need to be read after this exhilarating conversation. Kevin Nelson says, Jane, Silent Bob beat up the Easter Bunny and Mallrats. I've never seen Mallrats.
Great series, man. Great
Kevin,
series.
if Tom can swing his saber over his massive balls, seems like a fair match. Okay.
What did I miss? What?
Kevin Nelson, I'm pushing for a lightsaber duel between Paul and Tom. Kevin also said,
how about a gun show? Let's do the gun show. What do you think?
Pew pew.
We'll do the gun show, Tom.
J. Andrew Kennedy, if I had boobs, I'd have no career. It's honestly not fair. My time would be very occupied.
I can relate to that. If I had a feminine side, I'd be touching it all the time.
Right? Could you imagine, Tom, if somebody created like a 6-pack of pussy? You'd never leave home.
Oh, that you're right.
The end of masculine, well, anything would be over.
Yeah, nothing would get done.
Nope, ever.
Riches would crumble. Oil would stop flowing. Trying to think here. Yeah,
sorry, honey, no need for us to be married anymore. Well, I guess we can do this. I mean, I'll pay half the bills. You take care of the kids, but other than that, you sleep on the couch.
That's right. Rick said, could it be a holdover from Chechnya? He's talking about the terrorists in Russia. Yeah. They're from Tajikistan.
Tajikistan?
Tajikistan, thank you. So
I guess one of the stands.
One of the stands. Durkistan. By the way, if you have not watched Team America, World Police,
fuck yeah.
America.
Fuck yeah.
Ronery of being a roan. Okay. J. Andrew Kennedy with a great thread. I want to read this, Paul. So J. Andrew Kennedy said, breaking. Hold on. Let me go to the front.
Oh, no.
I understand this is a serious conversation, but I'm willing to bet Tom will crush St. Paul in an arm wrestling match. And then he said, St. Paul versus Tom match. Paul, ow, stop it. And then he said, breaking news. Hamas fired a missile at St. Paul's arm. He's unable to wrestle Tom.
It feels okay. I don't know, man. Can the camera see it okay there? I don't know, man.
And then
scoot that puppy over there a little bit.
He said, disregard. St. Paul is adjusting his corn screen. I don't even know what that is.
Put a P for the C.
What?
P for the C in corn.
His porn screen? I think you could get a much better icon than a thing of corn.
You go for an eggplant.
You can go for an eggplant. You go for a peach.
An eggplant and a peach.
An eggplant and a peach. Or in Paul's case, 2 eggplants. Anyway. Wow. All right. Phil, do you have
this coming from the guy who posted a daddy cartoon in our freaking chat room?
I shared it with you because because of all the crap you've given me on the show.
I had stopped, man.
It's basically this guy and girl in bed together, and the guy said, I'm really uncomfortable with you calling me daddy. And she said, why is that? And he said, because you're a big girl now. You can just call me dad. And I thought that was funny given the crap that Paul's been giving to me. So I thought I would share.
And I thought it was an invitation to kick back up with the daddy jokes.
No, it's not.
Take that as a no, huh?
It's not.
That's what I thought too.
All right. Phil, parting thoughts.
Not much to share here. Just ready to go home.
All right. You're always ready to go home. If we ended the show at 9:05, you'd be ready to go home.
Phil's on it, man. Stop giving him so much grief.
Phil's not even arguing with me. He's like, that's actually true. Lori, parting shots.
Sure. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the freedom or the free speech free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The First Amendment.
Which is basically Lori saying that all those swimmers should have protested. Thank you, Lori.
I guess I do have a party.
Okay.
So we shared a little video about the government looking at releasing bears here in Washington State.
Yes.
And there was a funny part when he's like, we got the right to arm bears. Heck, they're giving us the whole bear. That and the story of the government cheese, I still am just like.
Yeah, the government cheese
Is
thing.
that real?
Yeah, it is.
It's.
I looked it up. It is real. I'm just still like.
Yes,
Explain
it's
the government
crazy,
cheese
huh?
for the listeners who don't know what you're talking about because they didn't see it. Explain it.
The short version is they propped up the dairy farmers coming out of World War II, turning milk into cheese because they're like, what are we going to do with this milk? And then they'd just been storing the cheese.
Yeah.
And then finally Reagan's like, yeah, we got to do something with this cheese. Let's throw it in the ocean. No, the taxpayers like, we paid for this. So that's where the giving out of government cheese
started. Yeah.
And then we move on to the Clinton era when, the Got Milk campaign starts and, because cheese apparently can't, advertise itself. So.
No, listen, I was amazed when I read that story that was how it happened. I thought it would have been.
I thought he was being funny. I
thought
I looked it up and I'm like, oh my gosh.
But I'm just thinking, I would have thought it would have been just like a welfare program. Like, we need to get, nutritional stuff. Cheese is relatively nutritious. It's made from dairy. It's high in vitamin C or whatever.
No, they just have 40-year-old cheese.
They just got 48 cheese in a cave somewhere.
Yeah, the trouble is, it's not good cheese.
No. It's government cheese.
No, government cheese. No, government cheese makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches, man.
No.
Government cheese is great. Paul, don't you agree? Government cheese makes great grilled cheese.
I'm a cheese fiend, man. Most types of cheese I just love, man.
I remember getting the government cheese as a kid. You stand in the line, you wait for it with mom and grandma, and the cheese sandwiches taste good because that's all you knew.
I'm just
But
if anybody has government cheese, please get me some. I want to make a grilled cheese sandwich and see how it goes.
But I also learned. I became old enough to do the math. I was like, Mom, powdered milk is not less expensive than the regular milk. I did the math. And I wrote it out and I proved it to her. And she said, well, not if you stretch it. Let that sink in.
Yeah. More water, less milk.
No wonder the milk tasted funny.
Yeah.
Think about the corn.
It's like low-fat milk.
Our kids have no idea. Riley Gaines has no idea. She's never had powdered milk.
And then as an adult.
My kids have.
Oh,
it's a great sauce base.
Oh, as an adult, I was like, you can take powdered milk and add it to the regular milk.
Oh.
Paul, how do you feel about powdered milk?
Lactose issues.
Well, I'm on a farm, man. I use powdered milk here probably way too often.
Wait, you're on a farm and you use what are the two of them have? Why is one correlation to the other?
Because I have kids and I get sick and tired of going and buying them milk.
Oh yeah.
So I have a lot of like freeze dried foods, survival foods and stuff. And,
Although
go ahead.
I was going to say, and they make a good point. Whoever they are, we are the only mammals that drink the milk of other mammals.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's true.
Well,
a little creepy and weird, but it's true.
I'm gonna give a free plug, which I would never usually do. I never believed I would ever have milk delivered to my house in my life. Like, that was a very much like a 1950s bottles of milk on your doorstep kind of thing.
It's nice.
And I get Smith Brothers milk, and my God, it's amazing, and it lasts forever. Like the shelf life of their milk, because it hasn't gone from the farm to a warehouse in a truck to the store. I get like an extra week out of that milk because it's coming directly off of the farm, and it's dreamy. I don't even like to drink regular milk now.
I still remember they had a Jersey cow milk place out of Belfair. Oh, that was amazing.
The only thing that would make me happier is if it came in a glass jar.
It came in a glass jar.
Yeah, ours doesn't. Mine comes in cardboard. But if it came in a glass jar, I'd be so happy. Well, here's a weird thing you guys didn't know about me. I will not drink things out of plastic cups if I can avoid it.
Why?
Always in glass.
Why?
Just because glass is better.
I agree.
Than plastic.
I will never use plastic bottles in my distillery.
Yeah.
Never.
If I can avoid
I will never use a screw top either.
Yeah. If I can avoid it. Because sometimes you're at somebody's house, they got red Solo cups. All right, whatever, fine, but it's not.
Red Solo cup gets a pass. I mean, that's
but again, anything is better in glass.
Agreed.
The best soda I've ever had in my life before I stopped drinking soda was Mexican Coke in a bottle.
Yep. It's because they use real sugar.
They use real sugar, and drinking it out of a glass bottle is just the way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
They have it at the Mexican restaurant down the hall.
Oh yeah, you can get it at Costco too. You can get a flat of Mexican Coke at Costco.
No, I'm just saying you can get it at most grocery stores.
Yeah,
The
You can get
new
a flat.
Mexican market here in Port Orchard, right over next to.
Can you call it a Mexican market? Is that racist?
No, it's a Mexican market. I don't
It's on
remember
the
name
sign.
of it. Yeah,
Is
it's
it?
on the sign.
Yeah.
But they're
It-
Mexican. They're allowed to say that. Like black people can say the N word, but we're not allowed to.
Would you like me to say the Latin market?
No, because it's not
Does
Latin.
that feel
Like
better?
in Silverdale, Alejandro's market is made in Mexico market.
It is Latin. Mexico is part of Latin America.
Latin X. It's
But
Latin
you didn't say
X.
Latin American market. You said the Latin market, and Latin is a dead language that nobody speaks anymore.
And no, it's referring to Latin America. Latin, Latino, Latina.
You didn't say Latino.
Latinx.
You said, and by the way, why do
I
they
won't
call
do
it
that.
Latin America? Does anybody know the answer to that? Because there's nothing there that's Latin. They don't speak Latin. Why is it Latin America?
Because Latin's the base language for Spanish, French, and Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Is it for English too?
No.
No.
What's
English is Germanic.
Oh, okay. Fucking Nazis. All right.
Okay, according to the internet,
It's
Yes.
Germanic and Gaelic, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
kind of a hodgepodge.
We're not judging people for their sexuality on this show, Tom. Go ahead, Philip. What do you got
quickly scanning here on PBS's website.
about Latin America?
Yeah.
Oh, see.
And their website sucks. Napoleon had strong interest in extending French commercial.
Yeah, according to this, let me read what I got while you're looking yours up. The term Latin America refers to nations in the Americas and the Caribbean where a majority of the residents speak Spanish or Portuguese. These languages are descended from Latin. The term was coined in the 1860s by the French Emperor Napoleon III. He and his
Good
ministers
job,
used the
Tom.
term to
Thank
suggest some cultural similarity between the region and France. The term Latin America can be subdivided into Spanish America, Portuguese America, and French America. There you go.
Tom studied cultures.
So that's basically Brazil, the rest of South America, and then Ontario.
According to this, some countries that make up Latin America,
French America?
Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador. There you go.
Yeah. And speaking of Latin America,
Yes.
Haiti.
Oh, Haiti's a dumpster fire, man.
Yes, it is. My missionary friends finally got airlifted over to Dominican Republic.
One of my pastor's daughters is a missionary in Haiti, and
Mm-hmm.
let me ask you this really question, Paul, really quick in like 30 seconds or less.
Sure, man.
Does the Monroe Doctrine require us to get involved in Haiti? I mean, should we be down there sorting that?
Well,
crap
they're in
out?
our hemisphere, right?
Yeah.
So
Haiti's been getting
Man,
slapped around
it-
by the earth for a while now.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how much we should be involved in the Dominican Republic, and I'm sorry, because of the Dominican Republic, right? When you have, two people that live on the same block, and person A's house is in pretty good shape and it's beautiful and it's all well kept, and person B literally hasn't put a paint job on their house in 30 years. It's dilapidated and falling apart. It's reducing the property values of person A's house, right? So shouldn't person A figure out how to fix shit?
Yeah. And is person A, person B, Haiti, and
Dominican Republic.
Here's my problem. If we don't help Haiti, who does? Does Russia? Does China? Do we want
China?
I'm just speaking generally, right? Do we want a foreign adversary in our hemisphere? That's why I think we should get involved, Phil.
So forgive my ignorance. What's the geopolitical situation? Like Haiti's,
It's a
terrible
failed state.
attitude.
It's a failed
And-
state.
And
yeah.
Dominican Republic, not so much. Like what?
No,
would
it's
it
in
take-
great shape. Yeah, it's in great shape, actually.
I can't tell if he's joking.
No, Dominican
I thought it
Republic
is.
is. So here's the difference. Dominican Republic has really sold their soul to foreign devils, and a lot of foreign money and foreign development, and they've really banked on
I know they're the same
tourists
island.
and cruise lines and stuff.
Yeah.
Haiti has not done that. They are destitutely poor as a nation. They have not learned from what Dominican Republic did next door, and they've basically gone to hell in a handbasket They can't maintain leadership. They can't maintain presidents. They can't maintain their legislative bodies or anything. And it's just one coup or failed coup after another.
And that's why no one's going to help them, because there's nothing in it for anyone.
Well, for China there would be, for Russia there would be, because if they went to Haiti and said, we're going to help, but we want land for a base.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the shitstorm if Russia or China ended up with a military base in the Caribbean?
Mm-hmm. Wasn't that where they were in Cuba before?
No.
He's right. They would. They were in Cuba, and that was a real shit stain of a situation.
It was nearly World War III.
Yeah.
You know,
if I remember right, there was a bit of a missile crisis.
Little one. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think the U.S. needs to get involved in Haiti before somebody that we don't want there does. And I don't know what getting involved means.
Well, when you've got a guy named Barbecue who's ruling the country right now with his armed gang of thugs, it's.
Yeah, I certainly don't want a puppet government. That's not what I'm looking for. But boy, there's got to be.
We don't want to have another, send in the filibusters kind of situation.
No, and we don't want what we did. We really don't want what we even did in Panama. But something has to happen to stabilize that region, or it becomes ripe for Russia, China, some other. Well, God, can you guys imagine if Iran?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking a Middle East country.
Yeah, like Iran.
I'm just gonna say we're gonna have to rewrite the lyrics.
Cash.
Iran in Haiti, Russians in Cuba. I mean, it doesn't work. I guess we'll have to contact Billy Joel.
But yeah. But look, I mean, if you're Iran, wouldn't that be perfect? If you're Iran, well, listen, you guys have got military bases all around us, everywhere, all around all of our borders. You got U.S. military bases. Why don't you put an Iranian military base not too far off your shore and see how you fuckers feel about that? I could totally see the Iranians hoping to do that.
I'm sure we'd find a way to stop that.
We would stop it, but
you remember the origins of the Navy?
Yes. Yes, but we would find a way to stop it. But we'd find a way to stop it. But wouldn't it make more sense for us to figure it out before they had a foothold?
Yeah,
that's all.
You think so? But
what is
we're talking about the government here.
Yeah, what does a libertarian think, Tom? About us getting involved in Haiti?
Let all those innocent people die, says the libertarian.
Not exactly.
Actually,
save them all. Spend lots of money on save Haiti.
Yeah, definitely not.
The libertarians would respond with 2 words: "Fuck them." That's it. That's
not exactly. I believe if we're going to do something in Haiti, it should be private. It doesn't need to be on the backs of the taxpayer, because not every taxpayer can afford that.
Yeah, what is our government doing to make us not want to privately help Haiti? Are there things that are in the way? Are there obstacles?
I haven't dug that deep into Haiti. I mean, all I know is that Mother Earth keeps bitch slapping Haiti, earthquakes and tidal waves and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
Mm-hmm. And they keep making babies, so they keep having a population.
Well, human nature, those 3 F's.
All right.
Find them, feel them, farg them, and flee, baby.
Yeah, something like that.
Run for the hills. All right. Lori, did you already give all your parting shots?
I did.
You're done? All right. Tom?
I will have a tantrum about the idiot Jay Inslee Wednesday.
Oh, we never did get to it, did we?
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
The time
I'm gonna
for
miss it. Will you tell me about it later?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it. I mean, the time for it has come and gone. There was a point where it would have been, applicable, but we steamrolled past it.
Okay.
Good adjective.
Yeah. All right. Paul, parting shots.
No, we're good, man. Go to bed. Good night. Chush, bispeta, adios, muchachos.
All right. I've been farting in the studio all night long tonight.
Is that what I'm smelling?
Yep.
Oh God.
That's a really badass.
I haven't caught anything.
Does that make Lori a fart
I don't know
smeller?
how I can not catch it. But
All right. Good night.
I haven't given my parting shot yet, and it'll be good night.
Lori was pointing out your parting shots.
All right, here's my parting shots. One, thanks to Jesse Young for spending time with us tonight for a couple hours. It was great to have him back in again. I'm glad he's back in the fray.
Yeah, it was.
And I'm not even going to pretend like I'm not completely in his corner. I totally am. So I'll just be transparent about it and own it. If you don't like it, you can suck it.
Have we heard who he's running against?
He's running against the same Democrat who ran against Spencer last time around. I don't remember the name.
Okay.
And then there is another Republican who's declared as well, but they have a history of donating to Democrat candidates.
Right.
So
Yeah, I heard that
it
part.
does look a little wonky.
Yeah. I knew about that. I mean, Jesse brought him up. I was
Yeah.
just curious about the Dem.
It's the same Dem that lost last time around.
okay.
It's what the Democrats do in the 26th. You know, they did that to Michelle Caldera a couple times where they put her up against the same lady. Was it Joy Davidson? I think was who it was, or maybe it was Joy Davidson that ran against Jesse. I don't know, but Joy Davidson ran a couple of years in a row, even though they didn't win either one. I think that they're really scraping bottom on getting candidates in the 26 to run for those seats, and I don't know why, because all of the races are not blowouts.
What,
especially the Jesse ones in the past. I mean, Jesse won, but it was like 52-48.
Well, I mean, that's like Republicans in the 23rd up around Paulsbo, north end of the county.
Right, but up there, Democrats are blowing them out. I mean, Republicans are getting slaughtered in the numbers. It's 65-35.
Yeah.
Down here, the Republicans were winning, but even, in Jesse's seat, he was winning 52-48, 53-47. I mean, it's a gap. But it's not a huge gap. And I don't know why and none of the Democrats that they've run are Democrats I've ever heard of. Like, none of them have any name recognition or anything. So anyway, my only other parting shot is, listen, next Sunday's Easter. We are going to do a show. We are going to be here. We might be drunk off of tryptophan from the turkeys we're making or whatever. I'm doing prime rib, by the way.
Turkey, Easter? No.
Yeah, some people do turkey
prime
for
rib
Easter.
or ham.
Some people do turkey for Easter.
Turkey.
What is your issue with turkey, dude?
It happens on Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
It's when you can burn your house.
What do you do on Christmas?
Prime rib.
Prime rib. And then what do you do? What are you going to do for Easter?
Ham.
Prime rib.
Ham.
In honor of Jesus.
I can't afford a prime rib this year.
All the Jews are having ham. I'm going to do a prime rib. I'm going to do prime rib. Paul left. He's going to do a tofu burger. Paul loves tofu.
Whatever
that was my elbow.
Oh, okay.
Paul loves tofu.
Is that what you call that?
Yeah. All right. That'll do it, guys. We'll see you Wednesday. I won't be here. I'll call in if I can, but I don't think I'll be able to. I think we'll go late because we have a longer music set for our Easter service. So I'll probably be at rehearsal later. So I probably will not be able to call in. But I'll be back on Easter service. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Have a great night. Good night, G. I love you.
Good night.